Chapter 3579. After leaving the imperial capital, Ji Tianqing was somewhat at a loss. For a moment he actually did not know where to go. He had come to the Dragon Realm after many hardships in order to find Ji Wuhan. However, he didn't have the slightest clue as to where Ji Wuhan was. The only clue was that Ji Wuhan was rescued by a peak divine king from the Dragon Clan. Ji Tianqing saw the scene of Ji Wuhan being rescued with his own eyes. He was very sure that the one who rescued him was definitely from the Dragon Clan, and it was a peak divine king. Of course, it could also be a god emperor who surpassed the divine king realm, if the Dragon Realm had such a powerhouse. It was just a pity that Ji Tianqing was unable to distinguish which god king had saved Ji Wuhan. As far as he knew, there were more than 10 peak divine kings in the Dragon Realm. At the very least, the overlords who controlled the 5 continents were all peak divine kings. At the same time, those 5 overlords were also the targets of his investigation. However, with his current strength and realm, it was impossible for him to directly find the 5 overlords and ask about Ji Wuhan's whereabouts in person. This matter could only be discussed at length. Then let's go to the Green Lotus domain first, meet the Green Lotus domain lord, and inquire about the current situation. With this thought in mind, Ji Tianqing made up his mind to make the Green Lotus domain his first stop. He also wanted to know if there were any changes in the current Dragon Realm after 1,000 years. He had met the domain master of the Green Lotus region once in the past. The two of them had chatted for a while during a Godly King exchange meeting. He knew that the Green Lotus domain lord's cave abode was in the vast Cloud Pool Mountain within the Light Wind Empire. Hence, he changed direction and flew toward the Light Wind Empire. In a flash, 3 days passed. The journey was safe and sound. Even though Ji Tianqing crossed thousands of mountains and rivers and encountered countless demonic beasts and demon clans along the way, no one dared to have any thoughts about him. Even groups of ferocious demonic beasts would not dare to bare their fangs at him. After all, he had the noblest dragon bloodline and was a divine king expert. The Dragon Realm situation was the same as the God Realms. There were only a few divine king realm powerhouses in each domain, and not everyone could see them. While they were on their way, Ji Tianqing also asked about Yunyao, Jiku, and the others. It had been 5 days since he arrived in the Dragon Realm. Everyone stayed in the distorted spacetime and recuperated in seclusion for 8 months. Their injuries had all stabilized. However, it would take at least 3 to 5 years for him to fully recover. When everyone found out that Ji Tianqing was out of danger and had successfully escaped from the divine world and arrived at the Dragon Realm, they were all in high spirits. White Dragon, Black Dragon, and Qian Yu were especially excited. As for Yang, Chao Qingyu, and Lan'er, they did not feel anything. Anyway, they were following Ji Tianqing, so it didn't matter where they went. The most depressed person was none other than Bai Feng. He was a high and mighty domain lord who could call the wind and summon the rain in the divine world. Now that he followed Ji Tianqing, he could only be a guard. Furthermore, coming to the completely unfamiliar Dragon Realm, he was not used to it. As for Zhenhong, Lin Shui, Lord God Blood Illusion, and the rest, they had been cultivating in seclusion in the distorted spacetime and the divine ship, working hard to increase their strength. Ji Tianqing did not contact them, nor did he tell them about the current situation. Currently, he did not need them for the time being. They just needed to cultivate in peace. After inquiring about everyone's situation and seeing that everyone was fine, Ji Tianqing's mood was also very relaxed. In the divine world, he had already become the public enemy of the Boundless Heaven continent and Reincarnation Island. Wherever he went, he would be hunted down, setting off waves of carnage. But in the Dragon Realm, no one knew him yet, and he did not have any enemies. He believed that this trip to the Dragon Realm would definitely be very relaxing and enjoyable. This evening, when the sun was setting in the west, Ji Tianqing arrived at the southern part of the Light Wind Empire. He landed in a city called Rain Swamp, preparing to rest for a while before heading to Cloud Swamp Mountain. Rain Swamp City was situated between the mountains and had a history of over 10,000 years. The overall style was rather ancient and heavy, and even had the peculiar temperament unique to the demon race. What ivory towers, tiger bone palaces, bell towers decorated with sparrow feathers, could be seen everywhere here. Even the demon race commoners in the city were dressed in all sorts of strange costumes, very unconventional. Ji Tianqing had long gotten used to it. strolling in the bustling rain swamp city, releasing divine scents to envelop the entire city, listening to the sounds from all directions. Although there were thousands of languages in the demon race, each race had their own language. But, after as long as several tens of thousands of years of subtle influence, all of the demon races reached a consensus. In the 5 continents of the dragon realm, the common language was a simple version of dragon language. Only when it involved inheritance and profound dragon race divine abilities and consummate skills would they use the ancient dragon language. Ji Tianqing seemed to be strolling leisurely, but in reality his mind was constantly accepting a mess of voices, filtering out useful information from among them. After a short 2 hours, he had gathered dozens of useful information from the billions of voices. Among them, 3 were the most important. First, the current Green Lotus region had not changed much from 1,000 years ago, and the Green Lotus region master had not changed. Second, the Green Lotus region had been peaceful for the past 1,000 years, with neither war nor chaos. Third, the neighboring benevolent region had a strange phenomenon yesterday. It was said that a secret realm that had been sealed for 10,000 years had appeared, and it seemed to have something to do with the divine dragon. At present, this news had not spread, and only a few powerful people knew about it. They were discussing in secret, mobilizing elite troops and preparing to go to the benevolent region to try their luck. Of course, this news was inadvertently heard by Ji Tianqing. Those few high-level divine lords of high status were hiding in some secret room and conversing, but they were discovered by his divine sense. Ji Tianqing was not interested in this. To him, the truly useful information was only the first 2. It's good that the Green Lotus region master has not changed. If it was changed without the friendship from back then, it would not be easy to deal with. For the past 1,000 years, the Green Lotus region has been peaceful, then he should still be cultivating in the domain chief's manner. I should not have made a wasted trip. Ji Tianqing muttered silently and was about to leave Rainpool City and set off for Cloudpool Mountain. However, just as he turned around, a handsome youth in luxurious clothes and a fur coat blocked his way. This was a youth from the Rock Clan. Although he looked 80% like a human, he still retained the characteristics of the Rock Clan. His cheeks were thin, his nose was hooked, and his pupils were golden. His arms were covered with dark golden feathers, and his fingers were sharp and long. The Rock Clan was one of the 7 ancestors of the Demon Clan, and was also recognized as a noble among the demons in the Dragon Realm, with a noble bloodline. Although this youth from the Rock Clan was still relatively young, he already had the strength of an 8th-level Divine Lord. In the small Rainpool City, he was also ranked in the top 5 powerhouses. Brother Long, please hold on. The Rock Clan youth cupped his fists at Ji Tianqing and greeted with a smile. Ji Tianqing frowned slightly, looked at him expressionlessly, and asked, "What is it?" The Rock Clan youth still maintained a hearty smile and said in a friendly tone, "Brother Long, I've been secretly observing you for a long time. This should be your first time in Rainpool City, right? Wonderful book house." Chapter 3580. You're following me? Ji Tianqing's brows furrowed, his gaze abruptly turning cold. Even though he knew that the Rock Clan youth was talking nonsense. After all, his divine sense enveloped the entire city. The several million demon race commoners' every action was under his control. If someone took an extra glance at him, he would discover it, let alone following him. It was just that, the Rock Clan youth deliberately said this, he would also appropriately show displeasure. The Rock Clan youth hurriedly waved his hands and explained, "Brother Long, calm your anger. I don't have any ill intentions. After all, we've never met before. It's just that Brother Long is handsome and valiant, with an imposing appearance. Regardless of whether it's form or temperament, it's all 1 in 10,000 noble. That's why I saw you at one glance in the vast sea of people. As the saying went, don't slap a smiling face." Ji Tianqing could feel that this person did not have any ill intentions. Only then did his furrowed brows relax. After all, what this guy said was the truth. Amen, he preferred honest people. "Speak, what on earth do you want?" Ji Tianqing's expression was calm as water. The Rock Clan youth was not in a hurry to answer. He smiled and answered with a question, "Brother Long, before answering this question, I want to ask, are you passing by here? Or did you specially make a trip to Rainpool City to do something? Is there a difference?" Ji Tianqing answered with a question. The Rock Clan youth nodded his head and said, "Of course there's a difference. If Brother Long is passing by here, then I want to do business with you. If Brother Long came to Rainpool City to do something, then I want to be friends with Brother Long. After all, I, Peng Fei, still have some connections in this Rainpool City." Ji Tianqing raised his brows and said straightforwardly, "I don't want to do any business, nor do I want to make friends." Peng Fei completely did not expect that he would reject so straightforwardly. Hence, he gritted his teeth and made up his mind, plucking up his courage and said, "Brother Long, I don't have any ill intentions in the first place. Why do you have to reject people 1,000 miles away? Since that's the case, then I'll make a bold guess that Brother Long, you're not passing by here, but specially made a trip here to do something." Ji Tianqing looked at him expressionlessly and said, "Why do you say that?" Peng Fei didn't explain. He revealed a confident smile and continued, "I'll make a bold guess. Brother Long should be looking for someone, and it's a powerhouse with a very honorable status. Let me think, it might be the Rainpool City Lord. No, it shouldn't be him. If I'm not wrong, Brother Long's target is Cloudpool Mountain, right?" Ji Tianqing sized him up, and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he said, "Interesting. I remember that the great Rock Clan's inherited divine ability and talent is not to read minds and souls." "Of course not." Peng Fei smiled lightly and said, "This has nothing to do with my clan's bloodline, but as for the specifics, please forgive me for not being able to reveal." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and said, "I'm not interested in your secrets. Tell me, what are you trying to do?" Peng Fei raised his eyebrows and said with a bitter smile, "Originally, I wanted to be friends with you, but looking at your attitude, you probably won't agree. Since that's the case, then let's talk business. I have a top secret information that I want to sell to you. You'll definitely be interested." "Why should I be interested in something that has nothing to do with me?" Ji Tianqing asked back. Peng Fei said with certainty, "Because it's related to the Dragon Clan, and it's a huge opportunity." When he said this, Peng Fei's expression was serious, and he used divine sense voice transmission. Ji Tianqing suddenly thought of something and couldn't help but smile. "Quay, tell me." Peng Fei hesitated for a moment before opening his mouth and saying, "Originally, I wanted to sell this information for 20 million divine stones. If you don't pay, I won't reveal it. However, for Brother Long's sake, I can reveal a little first. Just yesterday, a strange phenomenon appeared somewhere. An ancient secret realm appeared, and it's said that it's related to the Dragon Clan and Brother Long. I can only reveal this much." Finished talking, he looked at Ji Tianqing with a grin, a look of anticipation. He originally thought that Ji Tianqing would definitely be moved and continue to ask for the inside story. This way, he could open his mouth and ask for a price. Unexpectedly, Ji Tianqing said with a smile and a ruminating look, "If it's this information, then that 20 million divine stones won't be fated with you." "Ah, what do you mean?" Peng Fei was stunned on the spot. Ji Tianqing transmitted his voice and replied, "Because I already know this information. That place you're talking about is the benevolent region." Peng Fei was stunned, revealing a disbelieving expression as he cried out in surprise, "How did you know? That's impossible. The news just spread out yesterday. In the entire Rainpool City, only 5 people know." Ji Tianqing patted his shoulder and said, "Kid, although you're quite interesting, we don't have anything to talk about. Goodbye." Finished talking, he was about to walk away. Only then did Peng Fei come back to his senses and hurriedly stopped him, saying in an anxious tone, "Brother Long, hold on. Since you know this information, could it be that you're not moved? Anyway, the benevolent region is very close. We can cooperate and explore that mystic realm together. I'll bring people and be in charge of gathering information and various miscellaneous tasks. After it's done, we'll split it 50 to 50. Ji Tianqing didn't need to care about anything, and could get 50% of the loot. Peng Fei's conditions were already very favorable, but Ji Tianqing still insisted on leaving. Not interested. Peng Fei hurriedly chased after him and followed behind him, bargaining continuously. "Then let's split it 40 to 60. You get 60% and I get 40%. How about we split it 30 to 70? You get 70%. Brother Long, don't go." Seeing Ji Tianqing's firm attitude and not being moved at all, Peng Fei pursed his lips, gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Long, let's talk about exploring in the future. I have a way to bring you to Cloudpool Mountain and help you see that elite immediately." Ji Tianqing's footsteps paused and turned to look at him. He said with a smile that was not a smile, "Are you sure? Do you know who that elite is?" Seeing him stop in his tracks, Peng Fei instantly regained his hope. He patted his chest and said, "Of course I'm sure." Ji Tianqing said with a playful smile, "I want to see Lu Ming." Lu Ming? Peng Fei frowned doubtfully. After thinking carefully, he suddenly thought of something and his expression changed instantly. "You're talking about His Excellency the Zone Leader?" Ji Tianqing smiled and nodded. He asked, "Now, are you still sure that you can help me see him immediately?" Peng Fei's expression was a little awkward. After hesitating for a while, he mustered his courage, gritted his teeth and nodded. No problem. He had bragged. No matter what, he had to stick to it. Forget it. Ji Tianqing chuckled and continued walking forward. Peng Fei caught up with him again, questioning with a depressed expression, "Brother Long, you don't believe me? What do you think?" Ji Tianqing didn't even turn his head, his expression indifferent. Peng Fei hesitated for a moment before saying in a low voice, "Forget it, I'll go all out. Actually, I'm the zone leader's martial nephew." Chapter 3581. This time Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks. He turned his head to look at Peng Fei, the corners of his mouth holding a playful smile. "Do you know what the consequences will be if this lie is exposed?" Peng Fei was even more depressed. "Brother Long, you still don't believe me? What do you think?" Ji Tianqing chuckled. "A random person on the street wants to sell me a piece of information for a sky-high price of 20 million. He even claims to be the Region Master's nephew. If it were you, would you believe it?" "All right, no one would believe it." Peng Fei could only nod in agreement. However, he refused to admit defeat. "Brother Long, since you want to meet the Region Master, let me lead the way for you. When we meet the Region Master, it will be clear whether I'm telling the truth or not." Ji Tianqing smiled playfully. "If your lie is exposed and the Region Master punishes you, I won't plead for you." Peng Fei nodded. "What if it's true? Brother Long, why don't we work together and go to the benevolent region to explore the Divine Dragon Mystery Realm? Let's talk about this later." Ji Tianqing waved his hand and declined to comment. Although the Mystery Realm was related to the Divine Dragon, he was not very interested. He basically knew all the divine skills of the Dragon Clan. However, if there were Dragon Balls, Dragon Bones, or Dragon Corpses in the Mystery Realm, he could consider going. Although he might not need them, the White Dragon, Black Dragon, and Qian Yu might need them. At the same time, in the depths of Yunjia Mountain, above the vast sea of clouds, a dazzling divine palace stood at the top of the sea of clouds. Under the sunlight it was dazzling and sacred. In the depths of the divine palace, in the luxurious secret room exclusive to the Region Master, a middle-aged demon clanman wearing a cloud-patterned green robe and a jade crown sat cross-legged on the altar. This middle-aged demon clanman was slender and strong. His face was resolute and dignified, and there were two pitch-black horns on his temples. If one was not an experienced and knowledgeable expert, it would be difficult to tell what clan he was from. At this moment he was meditating with his eyes closed. He was concentrating on comprehending an upper-grade king-grade deity skill. He had been at the 6th level of the Divine King realm for 1,000 years, but he was still unable to break through to the 7th level. 20 years ago, he had gone through a lot of hardships and put in a lot of effort to get this king-grade upper-grade deity skill. This was his hope of breaking through the 7th stage realm and becoming a high-level god king. But at this moment, someone knocked on the door of the secret chamber. The deep voice of a middle-aged man was transmitted into the secret chamber. Reporting to the Region Lord, the Emperor of Tianxiang sent a message saying that he has an urgent matter to report to you. Obviously, the middle-aged demon in the secret chamber was the Green Lotus Territorial Lord, Lu Ming. He was displeased that his cultivation was disturbed. He frowned and slowly ended his cultivation. He waved his hand and sent out a beam of divine light to open the door of the secret room. A middle-aged man dressed in armor and dressed as a guard walked into the secret room quickly. He held a communication jade slip in both hands and presented it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming lifted his sleeves expressionlessly and took the communication jade slip. He was about to check it with his divine consciousness. The guard continued, after the Emperor of Tianxiang sent a message, he brought a few experts with him and they are rushing over at the fastest speed. He said that he wants to tell you the specific details in person. Lu Ming did not check the communication jade slip for the time being. He frowned and asked in a low voice, "What exactly is the matter that made him so anxious that he has to come to see me personally?" The guard bowed and answered truthfully, "Reporting to the region lord, the Emperor of Tianxiang's most beloved daughter, the little princess of Tianxiang, has been killed." Lu Ming's frown deepened. He said somewhat angrily, "Even so, this is his family's matter. He is the Emperor of Tianxiang. Can't he even settle this matter? He came to see me. Does he want me to help him investigate the murderer?" The guard was suppressed by Lu Ming's anger and suppression. His face was pale and his body was bent. He lowered his head even more and said in a low voice, "The Emperor of Tianxiang said that the murderer of the little princess of Tianxiang is a big shot that he can't afford to offend. Only you can help him seek justice." Lu Ming's tightly knitted eyebrows relaxed. His anger then dissipated by a lot. "You may leave." He waved his hand and gestured for the guard to leave the secret room. He then used his divine consciousness to check the information in the jade slip. Outside Rainpool City, Ji Tianqing leisurely walked across the sky, traveling 1,000 miles with each step towards the Cloud Pool Mountain. Not far behind him, Peng Fei was sweating profusely. He tried his best to increase his speed, but the distance between them was still increasing. "Brother Long, slow down. Wait for me." As an 8th stage divine lord, Peng Fei had traveled all over the Green Lotus region and had never been so aggrieved. He was from the Rock clan and was naturally good at flying. He was as fast as lightning and far surpassed all the other demons. Among the powerhouses of the same realm, no one could surpass him. But now Ji Tianqing had already slowed down, but he still could not catch up. While Peng Fei was secretly alarmed, he also had a preliminary judgment of Ji Tianqing's strength realm. He must be a god-king powerhouse, seeing that the distance between them had increased to more than 300 miles. Helpless, Peng Fei could only transform back to his original form to increase his speed. Swoosh! He transformed into a dark golden-winged rock that was as big as a mountain and flew across the sky at lightning speed. As such, his speed was indeed doubled. Wherever he flew past, the sky was covered. Storms and cyclones spread wantonly, stirring up the sea of clouds. After dozens of breaths, he finally caught up to Ji Tianqing. Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and landed on his back unceremoniously. He said with a chuckle, "The rock spreads its wings and rides the wind, soaring up to 90,000 miles. You brat, when can you recreate old ancestor rock's glory?" If it were someone else stepping on Peng Fei's back, treating him as a mount, and even teasing him like this, he would have long turned hostile. But Ji Tianqing doing this, apart from feeling a little uncomfortable in his heart, he did not have any resentment. "Brother Long must be joking. My rock clan's old ancestor is one of the demon race's 7 ancestors, the pinnacle god-king powerhouse. Even when looking at the entire dragon realm, there are scant few. How can we, the sons and grandsons of the Rock clan, dare to have extravagant hopes of reaching the old ancestor's realm? No ambition." Ji Tianqing just smiled and did not say anything. Old ancestor Golden Rock, he naturally knew him. It was just that at that time he was still a low-rank god king. In the dragon realm, he only had the name of a genius but did not have the actual strength of a powerhouse. Even when meeting old ancestor Golden Rock, he also regarded himself as a junior and could only listen to the teachings. Peng Fei was not angry either. He just muttered, "Brother Long, you know that my rock clan is good at flying and that our speed is unparalleled under the heavens, so you deliberately tested me, right? We are not far from Cloudpool Mountain. Why do you have to fly so fast?" Ji Tianqing immediately revealed a smile and said indifferently, "You are thinking too much. With your current strength, what is there to test? I have already slowed down 10 times. It is enough to take care of you." Peng Fei was instantly stunned. Chapter 3582. The cloud pool mountain had a radius of 1,000,000 miles. The lush greenery was like the sea. Strange mountains and dangerous peaks rose and fell one after another, high and low. There seemed to be no end to them. The divine power of heaven and earth was abnormally abundant. Demonic beasts that had become gods could be seen everywhere in groups. There were also countless divine flowers and divine fruits, emitting a rich fragrance. The sky above the mountains and the sea of trees was covered in clouds all year round. Even the scorching sun at noon could not penetrate the clouds. Without a doubt, this was a blessed land with divine meridians. It was the most suitable place to establish a sect, build a cave abode, and a divine palace. The Green Lotus Domain Lord's manor was in the depths of the Cloud Pool Mountain. It was a magnificent divine palace, standing at the top of the vast sea of clouds. Ji Tianxing did not specify the direction, but Peng Fei carried him straight to the depths of the Cloud Pool Mountain and arrived at the entrance of the Domain Lord's manor. Peng Fei did not hesitate at all, nor did he take a detour. Based on this point alone, one could tell that he had indeed been to the Green Lotus Domain Lord's manor. Swoosh! Peng Fei landed outside the entrance of the divine palace. He immediately put away the golden-winged rock and transformed back into his human form. The few divine lord guards guarding the entrance looked stern and vigilant as they looked at Ji Tianxing and Peng Fei. Before Ji Tianxing could speak, Peng Fei took the initiative to say to the guard, "Please inform the domain lord that Peng Fei, a disciple of Mount Wuhua, wishes to see the domain lord." Mount Wuhua? The two guards were stunned for a moment. After looking at each other, they knew what was going on. One of them cupped his hands and said, "Please wait for a moment. I will go and inform the domain lord." The guard's attitude and tone were filled with respect. Obviously, Peng Fei's background was not simple. Ji Tianxing waited expressionlessly, secretly observing the entire divine palace. Although he knew Lu Ming, he had never been to the Green Lotus domain before, let alone his cave abode. After a short 100 breaths, that guard returned and bowed to Peng Fei, saying, "The region lord has agreed. Please follow me." As he spoke, the guard led Ji Tianxing and Peng Fei into the divine palace. The three of them passed through the front yard and entered the guest hall of the second courtyard. After Ji Tianxing and Peng Fei sat down, a maid immediately brought over spirit fruits and divine tea. The guard also bowed and left. After a short while, a dignified voice filled with energy entered the main hall. "Peng Fei, why are you running around instead of cultivating on Mount Wuhua?" Following this voice, a middle-aged Fei man wearing a green robe and a jade crown strode into the hall with a majestic gait. Seeing this person appear, Peng Fei quickly got up and bowed. His expression was a bit awkward as he said, "Peng Fei greets Martial Uncle." The man from the demon clan whom he addressed as Martial Uncle was the Green Lotus Domain Lord, Lu Ming. When he stepped into the main hall, Ji Tianxing recognized him. He cast a surprised glance at Peng Fei and thought to himself, "I didn't expect that this lad is indeed Lu Ming's junior nephew." Lu Ming temporarily ignored Ji Tianxing. He frowned and stared at Peng Fei, reprimanding angrily, "Peng Fei, do you know that your master has been looking for you everywhere for the past 2 years? In fact, your master even sent me a few messages, asking me to send people to search for him. Where have you been hiding? What do you want?" Peng Fei was embarrassed by the reprimand. It was not convenient for him to explain, so he could only change the topic. "Martial Uncle is right. I know my mistake. However, I'm here to visit because a friend wants to see you." As he said that, Peng Fei pointed to Ji Tianxing beside him and introduced, "Martial Uncle, this Brother Long came to the Green Lotus domain specially to look for you." Peng Fei was halfway through the introduction when he remembered that he had not asked for Ji Tianxing's name. He was a little embarrassed. Lu Ming frowned and looked at Ji Tianxing. After seeing his face clearly, he was stunned. His expression and eyes were a little dazed. As a result, he did not hear a single word that Peng Fei said after that. Lu Ming was still in a daze, but Ji Tianxing smiled and cupped his hands at him, saying, "Brother Lu, how have you been?" Hearing this familiar voice, Lu Ming finally came back to his senses and exclaimed in disbelief, You are Long Tian? That Long Tian from the Sky Dragon continent?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said with a smile, "That's right. Brother Lu's memory is not bad. You actually remember this. Lu Ming broke into laughter and said, "Ha, how can I forget this?" Brother Long's performance at that exchange meeting back then could be said to be extraordinary and shocking. Even though 1,000 years have passed, I still remember it clearly. Now that I think about it, I can't help but be amazed and emotional. Ji Tianqing smiled and waved his hands, saying, "Brother Lu is too kind. It's all in the past. Let's not talk about it." "Well, Brother Long is here this time." Lu Ming sat down at the head of the table. Just as he was about to chat with Ji Tianqing, he suddenly thought of something and his expression became very complicated. He frowned and secretly sized up Ji Tianqing. After hesitating for a while, he asked tentatively, "Brother Long, have you been to the Tianxiang Empire before?" Ji Tianqing was also a little surprised and asked back, "I have indeed been there." "How did Brother Lu know?" Haha. It's nothing." Lu Ming smiled and waved his hands. He immediately suppressed his complicated emotions and said with a friendly smile, "It's been 1,000 years. It's really fortunate to be able to see Brother Long again. Brother Long, why are you looking for me? Feel free to tell me." Ji Tianqing did not think too much and said directly, "I do have something to ask of you. I want to find out some information from you." Lu Ming nodded and said with a bright smile, "I'd like to hear the details." Ji Tianqing looked around the main hall. When he saw that there was only him, Peng Fei, and Lu Ming in the main hall, he then said, "Brother Lu, to be honest, I have been in seclusion for the past 1,000 years and am not aware of the changes in the outside world. Therefore, I want to find out about the current situation of the Star Source continent from you. For example, which powerful figure is controlling the Star Source continent now? What are the super forces? Are there a few more peak god kings?" Lu Ming was stunned for a moment and said with a somewhat stunned expression, "Brother Long, you came all the way here to visit me just to ask about these things?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded. "Oh, this is simple. Please allow me to explain slowly." Lu Ming's expression did not change, but he did not believe it in his heart. He had a feeling that Ji Tianqing had other intentions. The overlord controlling the Star Source continent has not changed. It is still the Gold Source Dragon Emperor. There have indeed been 2 peak god kings in the past 1,000 years, and they are both peerless powerful figures. As for the super forces, they are still the 10 over Grotto Heavens and the 2 new peak god king forces. Lu Ming's tone was calm and indifferent. He spoke at a steady pace. Ji Tianqing listened attentively and nodded from time to time to express his understanding. Occasionally he would ask a few questions. So far, both parties had a very pleasant conversation. Ji Tianqing also learned from Lu Ming that there were not many changes in the Star Source continent in the past 1,000 years. Everything was safe and sound. Chapter 3583. After getting the news and results that he wanted, Ji Tianqing was relieved. He chatted with Lu Ming for a while and asked about his recent situation. Lu Ming had not changed much. He had only broken through from the 5th level of the Divine King Realm to the 6th level of the Divine King Realm and reached the peak. However, he had not been able to break through to the 7th level. It was a pity. As for Ji Tianqing, he did not reveal the battle of the gods in the extraterrestrial universe and his rebirth after death. Anyway, Lu Ming did not know about these. He only thought that he had been in seclusion for 1,000 years without any breakthrough. Ji Tianqing did not think much of it. However, Lu Ming comforted him kindly. "Brother Long, although you have been in seclusion for 1,000 years, you are still at the 4th level of the Divine King Realm. However, this is very common. Don't be discouraged. A Divine King is at the peak of the Divine Tao. It is extremely difficult to break through to the next level. I believe that with your talent and aptitude, you will be able to break through soon after 1,000 years." Ji Tianqing only smiled and nodded. He did not say much. Peng Fei sat by the side and watched the two of them chatting happily. He was also full of smiles. While Ji Tianqing was drinking tea, he sent a voice transmission at the right time. "Brother Long, I didn't expect you to be an old acquaintance of my martial uncle. Should I call you Senior then? By the way, Senior, you won't go back on your promise to me, right?" Ji Tianqing glanced at him and sent a voice transmission in confusion. "What did I promise you?" Peng Fei was stunned for a moment and hurriedly explained. Didn't we agree previously? If I am really the junior nephew of the region lord, you will cooperate with me and explore the mystic realm in the benevolent region. Ji Tianqing frowned and said indifferently, I didn't promise you. This is just your wishful thinking. Peng Fei was deflated again. He looked a little depressed. Next, Ji Tianqing chatted with Lu Ming for a while more. He then bowed and thanked him, preparing to get up and leave. Brother Lu, sorry for disturbing you today. Thank you for telling me these. I still have things to do, so I won't disturb you any longer. See you again. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was about to leave, Lu Ming quickly stood up and tried to persuade him to stay. Brother Long, you've just sat down. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? You and I regret that we didn't meet earlier. We are like brothers. After 1,000 years we finally meet again. How can we leave just like that? In any case, you must stay here for a few days so that I may play host to you. No matter how busy you are, it can't be that you don't even have a few days, right? Besides Lu Ming, Peng Fei also tried to dissuade him. Ji Tianqing found it hard to refuse such hospitality, so he could only agree to stay for a few days. After all, he had come to seek Lu Ming's help. It would be unreasonable and rude of him to leave after obtaining the information he wanted. Seeing that Ji Tianqing had agreed to stay, Lu Ming then revealed a smile. Brother Long has been running around and must be mentally exhausted. I'll get someone to arrange accommodation for you now. You can rest for 2 days, then I'll set up a banquet to entertain you. With that, Lu Ming summoned his assistant, Moonhawk Divine King, and asked him to help Ji Tianqing settle down. While Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei were not paying attention, he secretly winked at Moonhawk Divine King. Moonhawk God King understood tacitly and brought Ji Tianqing to the 4th layer, where they settled down in a palace. There were not only dozens of guards in the palace, but there were also dozens of maids. Even Moonhawk Divine King stayed in the house next door. He said that he wanted to entertain Ji Tianqing well so that he would not neglect him. If Ji Tianqing had any needs or instructions, he could look for him at any time. He just had to inform him. Seeing that Moonhawk Divine King was so polite, even if Ji Tianqing felt that it was inappropriate, he could not say anything. In addition, Peng Fei also followed Ji Tianqing into the palace. After settling Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei, the domain master's manner finally quieted down. Seeing that Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei had entered the secret chamber to recuperate, Moonhawk Divine King then left and went to Lu Ming's study. Lu Ming was already waiting in the study. He sat alone on the wooden armchair, frowning as he pondered. Moonhawk Divine King entered the study and closed the door behind him. He then shot out a beam of divine light to activate the defense divine array. This divine array could isolate the probing of divine senses, ensuring that their conversation would not be overheard. Have you settled down? Lu Ming looked at Moonhawk Divine King and asked expressionlessly. At this moment he was no longer as candid and kind as before. Moonhawk Divine King nodded and said in a low voice, he has not been suspicious. He has already settled down and entered the secret chamber to meditate. That's good. Lu Ming nodded slightly, fiddling with a communication jade slip. The Emperor of Tianxiang will arrive in 2 days. Keep a close eye on him. Don't let him suspect anything. Understood. Moonhawk Divine King cupped his fists and bowed. After hesitating for a moment, he asked worriedly, Lord Domain Master, this person is after all a peerless genius famous throughout the 5 continents. His strength and methods are very powerful. If we really get into a conflict, do you think the 2 of us will be able to stop him? Lu Ming waved his hand and consoled. Back then, he was a peerless genius whose name shook the world, but that's all in the past. For nearly 1,000 years, he has been cultivating in seclusion but has not been able to break through. This means that his talent has been exhausted and he is no longer a divine Dao genius. He has even become mediocre. At that time he was at the 4th degree realm and I was at the 5th degree realm, so he could defeat me. But now, he is still at the 4th degree realm and I have reached the peak of the 6th degree realm. If we fight again, I have absolute confidence that I can defeat him. Moonhawk Divine King heaved a sigh of relief and nodded. That's good. Besides, we have the advantage. He will definitely not be on guard against us. Lu Ming frowned and said in a complicated tone, why does it sound like we are going to plot against him? It's not that serious. We just want him to confront Emperor Tianxiang so we can investigate this matter thoroughly. As the domain master, I can't sit by and do nothing when my subordinates come crying to me when they are in trouble. However, Long Tian's identity and background are special. I can help them mediate and resolve their hatred, but I can't punish Long Tian. If Emperor Tian Myriad wants to pay with his life, that's wishful thinking. Moonhawk Divine King thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. He nodded and sighed. Long Tian is the dragon race's divine king with a noble bloodline. Xiang Yu is just a Tian Myriad with a mediocre bloodline. Even if she is the little princess of the Tian Myriad Empire, she can't be compared to the dragon race's divine king. So be it. As long as we can find out the reason and get Long Tian to apologize to Emperor Tian Myriad, this matter will be considered over. Lu Ming nodded and said in a calm tone, with my strengthened face, it's not difficult to get Long Tian to apologize. If Emperor Tian Myriad still can't figure it out, then get Long Tian to compensate appropriately. This is all I can do. Chapter 3584. For the past 30,000 years, the Dragon Realm had been peaceful and peaceful. There had been no turmoil or chaos. Tens of thousands of demon clans lived in peace. They were of equal status and seemed to be harmonious. However, this was just a facade. The difference between bloodlines was too deeply ingrained in people's hearts, and it had long been ingrained in them. For example, the dragon, phoenix, Kylan, and the 4 sacred beasts had extremely noble bloodlines, and were of extraordinary status. As long as they did not do anything outrageous, no one dared to punish them. Even if they made mistakes, only the clans of equal status could restrain and judge them. As for the 7 ancestors of the demon clan, they were also recognized as aristocrats in the dragon realm. Although they did not have extraordinary status like the dragons and phoenixes, they had many privileges. Therefore, the death of the little princess of Tian Myriad was not a big deal to Lu Ming. It was only because he was a benevolent territorial lord that he helped the emperor of Tian Myriad to mediate. If it were other territorial lords, they would not be bothered. They would never offend a divine king of the dragon clan for the sake of the princess of the Tian Myriad. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 days, Ji Tianqing stayed in the secret chamber and cultivated in the distorted space-time of the divine pagoda. He had reached the late stage of the 4th divine king realm and was not far from the 5th. During this period, Pengfei came to look for him twice but did not manage to meet him. Pengfei still did not give up. He wanted to persuade him to join forces and explore the divine dragon mystic realm in the Tianren domain. In the early morning of the 3rd day, the sky was still dark. A flying boat came from the sky and arrived at the main gate of the territorial lord manor at lightning speed. After the flying boat was put away, a burly man from the Tian Myriad clan with a divine crown on his head hurried into the territorial lord manor with 2 high-level divine lords. There was no doubt that it was the emperor of Tian Myriad and the 2 commanders of the imperial guards. They were both high-level divine lords of the 8th stage. Under the guidance of the guards, the 3 of them came to the 2nd courtyard of the territorial lord manor and entered Lu Ming's study. Lu Ming sat alone in the study, waiting expressionlessly. After the emperor of Tian Myriad entered the study and bowed to Lu Ming, he complained about Long Tian's crime with a look of grief and indignation. Sir Domain Lord, you must uphold justice for this subordinate. That Long Tian's origin is unknown. He ruined my daughter's martial arts competition and even heavily injured the marshal's son. My daughter was merciful and pleaded with the marshal on his behalf, calming down the marshal's anger. Who would have thought that not only did Long Tian not thank him, he even killed his daughter. So what if he was a noble dragon? How could he do such a crazy thing? The emperor of Tian Myriad's sovereign was filled with grief and indignation as he complained tearfully. Lu Ming frowned when he heard that. He said in a stern tone, I don't want to hear you wailing here. This is of no help to the investigation of the truth. If you want me to uphold justice, then tell me the cause of the matter from beginning to end. In the jade slip, Emperor Tian Myriad's explanation was simple. Lu Ming only knew that the little princess of Tianxiang had been killed by Long Tian, but he did not know the specific reason. Therefore, when he saw Ji Tianqing, He could only bear with it for the time being and did not ask anything. After being reprimanded, Emperor Tianmeriod finally calmed down and recounted the whole story in detail. After hearing that, Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. He shouted coldly, "Xiang Zhouge, your daughter is really unruly and willful. I'm not afraid to tell you the truth. Long Tian is not only the divine king of the dragon race, but he was also once a peerless genius with a strong background. Your daughter, a mere princess of the Tianmeriod sovereign race, actually wanted to marry him? She even put him under house arrest in the palace? To put it bluntly, your daughter only has herself to blame." Emperor Tianmeriod's sovereign was stunned on the spot. He was filled with indignation as he muttered to himself, "But even if Long Tian looked down on my daughter, he shouldn't have killed her so cruelly. When the maidservant found my daughter, she had died in a very miserable and pitiful state. Long Tian had already fled." Lu Ming frowned and thought for a while. He said in a low voice, "These are your one-sided words. It's not to be believed. I don't believe that Long Tian would kill Xiang Yu so cruelly because of her pestering. Long Tian happens to be in my residence. I'll summon him over later so that you can confront him face to face. You must find out the truth today. If Long Tian is really the one who killed Xiang Yu, I can pressure him and force him to apologize. But as for other requests, don't be delusional." Emperor Tianmeriod's body stiffened. His expression was ugly, and there was a flash of humiliation and indignation in his eyes. He could not accept that his most beloved daughter had been killed in exchange for an apology from the murderer. This was unfair. However, he had no right to complain. Lu Ming was willing to help him find out the truth and force Long Tian to admit his guilt and apologize. This was already a favor. After a moment of silence, Emperor Tianmeriod could only nod and agree. He bowed and said, "Thank you, Territorial Lord." Lu Ming did not say anything else. He gestured for Divine King Yueying to invite Ji Tianqing over. At the same time, he led Emperor Tianmeriod to the conference hall. Ji Tianqing was still cultivating in the divine pagoda, focusing on comprehending the heaven-punishing divine art. However, someone kept knocking on the door of the secret chamber, and the rhythm was more urgent. Knowing that something had happened, Ji Tianqing could only end his cultivation and walk out of the secret chamber. Yueying Divine King stood at the door of the secret chamber and bowed. "Brother Long, the Territorial Lord invites you to the conference hall. He has something to discuss." Ji Tianqing frowned in confusion, wondering what was so serious. However, since Yueying Divine King did not reveal, he did not ask either. He followed Yueying Divine King out of the palace and walked towards the conference hall. Coincidentally, Peng Fei was strolling outside. When he saw the two of them, he hurriedly followed. "Senior Long Tian, where are you guys going?" Ji Tianqing smiled and replied casually, "Your uncle master has something urgent to discuss with me. We're going to the conference hall to discuss it." Peng Fei was full of doubts and asked Yueying Divine King, "Why are we going to the conference hall for no reason? What's so serious? Senior Yueying, can you tell us?" Yueying Divine King glanced at him and said expressionlessly, "Young Master Peng Fei, you'd better not ask too much." Seeing his serious expression, Peng Fei and Ji Tianqing both realized that something was amiss. True enough. As soon as the three of them entered the conference hall, they sensed a solemn and oppressive atmosphere. More than 10 Divine Lord Realm Guards guarded the entrance and passageway of the conference hall. In the middle of the hall, Emperor Tianmeriod stood with his hands by his side, looking sorrowful and angry. The two Imperial Guard commanders stood behind him, looking as if they had a common enemy. Lu Ming sat at the head of the table, expressionless and solemn. He was a completely different person from his previous warm, hospitable, and amiable self. Yueying Divine King walked into the hall and cupped his fists. "Lord Domain Lord, I've brought Long Tian here." Seeing this, Ji Tianqing frowned, and the corner of his mouth curled up into a cold smile. "From your tone, are you going to judge me? Or are you going to give some orders? Lu Ming, have you been acting with me all this while?" Before Lu Ming could say anything, the Emperor of Tianmeriod Phenomenon turned around and glared at him with bloodshot eyes. "Long Tian, you crazy bastard." Ji Tianqing was stunned. His face was full of question marks. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 3585. Even though the celestial phenomenon Emperor's face was filled with grief and indignation, his eyes were bloodshot with hatred. However, Ji Tianqing didn't know him. It was the first time they met, and the other party scolded him for being crazy. Anyone would be stunned. He ignored the Emperor of Tian Myriad and looked at Lu Ming expressionlessly. Lu Ming, what do you mean by this? Lu Ming looked serious and said in a low voice, this is the Emperor of Tian Myriad Empire. You stayed in Tian Myriad for a few days and even went to the palace, right? That's right. Ji Tianqing didn't deny it. Lu Ming continued, I heard that you ruined Tian Myriad's little princess's martial arts competition and was pestered by her. She brought you back to the palace for 2 days and you couldn't stand her pestering and pursuit, so you killed her. Am I right? What? Ji Tianqing was taken aback. His face was filled with astonishment. Tian Myriad's little princess was killed? Yes. Lu Ming nodded expressionlessly. You were the last person she saw. Not long after you left, the maid found out that she was killed. She died a horrible death. That's impossible. Ji Tianqing finally understood. No wonder the Emperor of Tian Myriad looked so aggrieved. However, this matter had nothing to do with him. He denied it. Seeing that he refused to admit it, the Emperor of Tian Myriad sneered. Long Tian, stop acting. That's the palace. Other than you, who would dare to kill my daughter? I admit that Xiang Yu was young and insensible. She did have the thought of keeping you and marrying you. But I've warned Xiang Yu that she will not force you to do anything. She was just expressing her feelings for you. Even if you didn't agree, you shouldn't have killed her so cruelly. Ji Tianqing frowned and pondered silently. However, he couldn't figure it out. This matter was too sudden and completely out of his expectations. Although he used the power of his soul to knock Xiang Yu out when he left Tian Myriad's palace, Xiang Yu wasn't injured. However, Xiang Yu did not suffer any actual injuries. She would wake up in 2 hours at most. He could not think of anyone in the palace who would take the opportunity to kill Xiang Yu. Seeing that Ji Tianqing was silent, Lu Ming frowned and asked in a low voice, Long Tian, did you do this? If you really killed Xiang Yu, I hope that you can give a reasonable explanation and apologize to the Emperor of Tianxiang. Without waiting for Lu Ming to finish his words, Ji Tianqing shook his head. His expression was firm and his tone was sonorous. This has nothing to do with me. I didn't kill him. Xiang Yu did express her feelings towards me and tried to persuade me to stay, but I rejected her every time. In order to thank her for helping me pacify the marshal's mansion, I left her a king-tier battle axe as a thank you gift and left. What happened after that has nothing to do with me. I don't know anything about it. Is this true? Lu Ming frowned doubtfully and questioned. Ji Tianqing nodded and said solemnly, it's true. Lu Ming fell silent and stared at him for a long time. He had an answer in his heart. However, the Emperor of Tianxiang refused to believe him. He pointed at Ji Tianqing and sneered. Long Tian, even if you're lying, there should be a limit. How can you blatantly make things up? You used a king-tier battle axe as a thank you gift to thank Xiang Yu for helping you out? Haha. When the palace maids entered the living room and saw Xiang Yu's corpse, there was no battle axe at all. With that, the Emperor of Tianxiang bowed to Lu Ming and said in a mournful tone, Lord, please investigate this. Long Tian is lying. After Xiang Yu was killed, her spatial ring was intact on her finger. There was no king-tier battle axe in it. Oh, Ji Tianqing frowned, a glint flashing in his eyes. He suddenly found a breakthrough and vaguely understood something. Lu Ming also noticed this and asked in a low voice with a serious expression, did you give her a king-tier battle axe or not? Yes. No. Ji Tianqing and the Emperor of Tianxiang answered in unison. But their answers were completely different. Lu Ming frowned and said in a serious tone, since both of you insist on your words, it seems that this should be a breakthrough in the investigation. Ji Tianqing nodded in agreement. The Emperor of Tianxiang was filled with resentment. He cupped his hands and said, Lord, this is obviously a lie made up by Long Tian. He is the one who killed Xiang Yu. Without waiting for him to finish, Lu Ming looked at him with a sharp gaze and shouted in a low voice, Xiang Joga, don't forget your identity. I will uphold justice for you and investigate the truth. Of course it has to be fair. Don't tell me you want me to help you judge and punish Long Tian? The Emperor of Tianxiang's expression stiffened, and he quickly bowed to apologize. Lord, please calm down. I wouldn't dare. Lu Ming retracted his cold gaze and ordered in a serious tone, since there are doubts, why don't we go to the capital of Tianxiang personally and investigate carefully? Long Tian Xiangzhouge, do you have any objections? Ji Tianqing naturally agreed. The Emperor of Tianxiang wanted to object, but he couldn't muster up the courage and could only acquiesce. Therefore, Lu Ming got up and walked out of the hall, instructing the Moonhawk King, stay at the Domain Master's mansion and wait for my orders. I will make a trip to the capital of Tianxiang. Yes. The Moonhawk King nodded and hurriedly sent everyone away. Soon Lu Ming left the Domain Master's mansion with Ji Tianqing, the Emperor of Tianxiang, and 2 commanders of the Imperial Guards. Lu Ming took out a divine battleship. He led everyone onto the divine battleship and wanted to leave. He didn't expect Peng Fei to follow them into the divine warship. Lu Ming frowned and tried to dissuade him, but Peng Fei insisted on following. Lu Ming didn't want to waste time and could only let him be. Swoosh! The divine warship closed the cabin door and flew high into the sky, rushing to the Tianxiang Empire at lightning speed. Lu Ming's divine warship was a king-level middle-grade divine weapon. It traveled at an extremely fast speed. In just 2 days, the divine warship arrived at the capital of the Tianxiang Empire and landed in the palace. Divine light flashed and Lu Ming put away the divine warship. Everyone landed and appeared in the palace. Time was tight and the Emperor of Tianxiang didn't hold any ceremony to welcome Lu Ming. Moreover, Lu Ming kept a low profile and didn't want to attract attention. Therefore, the Emperor of Tianxiang and the 2 commanders of the Imperial Guards led everyone to the scene of the incident. On the way, Ji Tianqing looked at the palace around him and sighed in his heart. I thought I would never come back in this lifetime after passing by this place. I didn't expect to come back here after leaving for just a few days. It's probably that inferior-level divine axe that killed Xiangyu? Although he didn't have much of an impression of Xiangyu, he didn't like her but he didn't hate her either. She was just a passerby in his long life and shouldn't have caused any ripples. But now that Xiangyu had been killed, it would definitely delay him for a while. It would also add some ripples to his peaceful journey to the Dragon Realm. Of course, even if he could turn back time, he would still reject Xiangyu decisively and not stay in the capital of Tianxiang. Chapter 3586. Soon, everyone arrived at the scene of the incident, Cloud Palace. Because of Xiangyu's death, Cloud Palace was heavily surrounded by the Imperial Guards. The guards and maids in Cloud Palace were also arrested and placed under strict surveillance, awaiting interrogation at any time. Lu Ming, Ji Tianqing, and the rest walked into Cloud Palace and stood in the courtyard outside the living room. Emperor Tianxiang pointed to the living room 100 steps away and took the initiative to introduce, Lord, that is where my daughter was killed. Lu Ming nodded and released his divine senses to cover the entire Cloud Palace, searching for any abnormalities. That living room was the main target of his search. Xiangyu's body had long been carried away and kept carefully. However, there were still bloodstains on the floor of the living room, still exuding a faint divine power. Unfortunately, Lu Ming did not find any useful clues after searching for a long time. Therefore, he turned to look at Emperor Tianxiang and instructed, bring Xiangyu's body here. I want to check it. Perhaps I will find something. Emperor Tianxiang hesitated and was about to nod in agreement. However, Ji Tianqing waved his hands and said, no need. Lu Ming and Emperor Tianxiang turned to look at him puzzled. What do you mean? Ji Tianqing said calmly, if the culprit could be identified from Xiangyu's injuries, then the culprit would be too stupid. Emperor Tianxiang frowned and sneered. Long Tian, you don't dare to look at my daughter's body because you are guilty and don't dare to face her? Or are you deliberately trying to hide something? Lu Ming frowned and asked Ji Tianqing, besides checking Xiangyu's body, what other methods do you have to prove your innocence? Ji Tianqing said with certainty, that day after I left, someone else came. It turned out that when Lu Ming used his divine senses to check on Cloud Palace, He was also using his special ability to check on the situation in Cloud Palace. He used his special ability to turn back time to check on the situation in Cloud Palace on the day he left. Although it had been a few days and even with the special ability, the clues he found were very vague. However, he clearly found that after he left, someone did enter the living room. Unfortunately, he was unable to detect that person's strength, nor could he discern his appearance or race. Are you sure? Lu Ming's eyes lit up with anticipation. Ji Tianqing nodded in confirmation. Summon all the guards and maids of the cloud-moving palace and interrogate them. We'll know everything. Emperor Tianxiang frowned as if he wanted to say something, but he remained silent. Following Ji Tianqing's suggestion, Lu Ming instructed the Emperor of Tianxiang, "Bring the guards and maids here." Tianxiang's emperor acknowledged the order and waved his hand at the two imperial guards. Not long after, two imperial guard commanders escorted more than 20 guards and maids to the courtyard. These guards and maids were all trembling with fear, lowering their heads in fear. When they arrived at the courtyard, there was no need for anyone to speak. They all knelt on the ground in fear and trepidation, not even daring to breathe loudly. Lu Ming released a powerful soul suppression, shrouding all the guards and maids. He asked in a deep voice, "On the day of the incident, after Long Tian left the Cloud Palace, who else came?" The guards and maids were already terrified. Shrouded by his soul suppression, they were all scared out of their wits. All of them lay on the ground with ashen faces, shivering like sieves. Many people shook their heads, indicating that they did not know. However, two guards from the Bear clan said in a trembling voice, "It's the state preceptor." The state preceptor came. Lu Ming got the answer he wanted. He waved his hand, indicating for the other guards and maids to leave. Leaving only the two guards from the Bear clan, Lu Ming asked again, "Tell me, why did the state preceptor come? Why didn't he enter the living room?" This time, without waiting for the two guards to answer, Emperor Tianxiang took the initiative to explain. "Lord Territorial Lord, the state preceptor taught Xiangyu cultivation. The relationship between the master and disciple was very harmonious. According to the usual practice, the state preceptor taught Xiangyu that day to clear her doubts. The state preceptor has explained this to me before. I believe that this matter has nothing to do with the state preceptor." In Emperor Tianxiang's opinion, anyone could have killed Xiangyu except for the state preceptor. The state preceptor was a highly respected senior. He had an upright character and there was nothing to criticize about him for thousands of years. Moreover, the state preceptor was loyal to the Tianxiang Empire and doted on Xiangyu a lot. However, Lu Ming did not care about this. He glanced at Emperor Tianxiang and said expressionlessly, "You knew that the state preceptor came. Why didn't you say so earlier? No matter how much you trust the state preceptor, he did enter the Cloud Palace after Long Tian left and before Xiangyu was killed. Therefore, he is the most suspicious." Emperor Tianxiang hurriedly waved his hands, exonerating the state preceptor. "Lord Territorial Lord, I believe in the state preceptor. All the people in the capital know the state preceptor's character." He would never. Before he could finish, Lu Ming interrupted him and continued to interrogate the two guards from the Bear clan. "Did the state preceptor enter the living room?" The two guards from the Bear clan hesitated for a moment before answering fearfully, "Yes." Lu Ming continued to ask, "How long did he go in? When did he leave? Did he say anything?" The two guards from the Bear clan hurriedly shook their heads and said fearfully, "We don't know. We didn't know when the state preceptor left. It was only when the maid, Ah Hong, found out that the princess was killed that we." Hearing this, Lu Ming and Ji Tianqing already had an answer in their hearts. However, Emperor Tianxiang was stubborn and said firmly, "Lord Territorial Lord, you shouldn't be distracted by Long Tian. How could the state preceptor kill Xiangyu?" Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "It's useless even if you believe it. The most important thing now is to find out the truth and find out the cause of Xiangyu's death. When I left, Xiangyu was safe and sound. Then, the state preceptor entered the Cloud Palace. If Xiangyu was already dead, the state preceptor would definitely report it to you. However, he didn't. This means that Xiangyu is still alive. However, the guards only saw the state preceptor enter the Cloud Palace. They didn't know when he left. Then a maid found out that Xiang Yu was killed. At this point, Ji Tianqing stared at Emperor Tianxiang and said indifferently, "Emperor Tianxiang, I've already sorted out the sequence of events very clearly. It's obvious who the real murderer is." This Emperor Tianxiang was speechless. No matter how much he trusted the state preceptor, he couldn't refute the facts. Lu Ming didn't waste any time and directly ordered, "Bring the state preceptor here. I'll interrogate him personally." Emperor Tianxiang was full of hesitation and was in a dilemma. However, he didn't dare to disobey Lu Ming's order. He could only let the Imperial Guard commander pass the message. Everyone stood in the courtyard and waited quietly. Taking this opportunity, Lu Ming secretly sent a voice transmission to Ji Tianqing. "Brother Long, how did you know that someone came to the Cloud Palace after you left? Could it be that you've mastered the divine power of time and can turn back time to see what happened a few days ago?" Ji Tianqing smiled and didn't say anything. Lu Ming had an answer in his heart. His eyes flashed with surprise. Chapter 3587. Time was one of the most mysterious and difficult to control forces in the world. Only a peak divine king could control time. For example, time could be stopped, accelerated, or reversed. But it was only for a short period of time. Previously, Lu Ming had thought that Ji Tianqing was still a middle-level divine king, and had not improved much compared to 1,000 years ago. In other words, this was a fallen genius who had faded into the crowd. But at this moment, Lu Ming suddenly realized that things were different from what he had imagined. Not long after, the state preceptor was brought in by 2 Imperial Guard commanders. This was a 9th-degree realm high-level divine lord. From his appearance, one could tell that he was an honest and benevolent elder from the Tianxiang clan. Just like what the Tianxiang emperor had said, such a sanctimonious elder was definitely of noble character and dignified behavior. In addition, he was Xiang Yu's master. No one would believe that he would kill Xiang Yu with his own hands. "Greetings to the Lord and His Majesty." The state preceptor came to the courtyard and stood still, bowing to Lu Ming and the Tianxiang emperor. Lu Ming's expression was stern as he looked at him coldly. He secretly exerted soul suppression and asked, "State preceptor, you came here after Long Tianqing left the Cloud Palace. Let me ask you, why did you come to the Cloud Palace?" The state preceptor bowed and replied calmly, "As usual, once every 10 days to teach the little princess cultivation." Lu Ming asked again, "When you entered the living room, what was Xiang Yu doing? Have you seen a king-level battle axe?" The state preceptor hesitated for a moment, his eyes a little blank. But it was only for a moment before he replied calmly, "At that time, the little princess had already been killed and was lying in a pool of blood. As for the king-level battle axe, I have not seen it." The Tianxiang emperor heaved a sigh of relief while Lu Ming frowned. On the other hand, Ji Tianqing's expression did not change, but a cold smile flashed across his eyes. Lu Ming asked again, "Since you saw the little princess being killed, why didn't you report it to the emperor? Also, when did you leave? Why did the guards and maids of the Cloud Palace only see you come in, but no one saw you leave?" This old official. The imperial tutor hesitated for a moment before answering. This old official's mind was in a mess at that time. "I didn't know what to do, but I didn't dare to say anything and could only leave quietly. After all, I would never have thought that the little princess would be killed in the palace. This matter is of great importance, so I don't dare to make it public to avoid causing panic. But who would have thought that not long after I left, before I could report to His Majesty, the maids of Cloud Palace would find out. Although this reason was a little far-fetched, it was not unreasonable." For a moment, Lu Ming was at a loss for words. He did not know how to continue the interrogation. The scene was silent, and the atmosphere was somewhat stiff. Ji Tianqing, who had been silent all this while, finally spoke. He stared at the imperial preceptor and secretly cast a soul secret technique. He asked in a low voice, "Imperial preceptor, you're lying. When you entered the living room, Xiang Yu was completely unharmed. She had only fainted and collapsed on the ground. In order to get rid of her entanglement, I used the power of my divine sense to knock her unconscious. And that crimson battle axe was placed on the jade table in the living room at that time." Upon hearing this, the imperial preceptor suddenly raised his head and glared at Ji Tianqing with hatred. He sneered and said, "Nonsense! You're the one who fabricated all these." Although he appeared to be very angry, but Ji Tianqing discovered that there was a hint of confusion and uneasiness in the depths of his eyes. Without a doubt, the imperial preceptor was guilty and confused. Such a complicated and subtle change in his gaze was naturally not noticed by the emperor of Tiandao, the imperial guard commander, Peng Fei, and the rest. But Ji Tianqing saw it clearly, and Lu Ming noticed it as well. Ji Tianqing continued, "Originally, you came to teach Xiangyu cultivation as usual. You didn't have any ill intentions, so you came openly and were seen by the two bear guards. But when you entered the living room, you discovered that Xiangyu had fainted, and there was a king-level divine weapon on the table. It was that king-level divine weapon that aroused your greed and made you want to kill her. You coveted that battle axe and were afraid that Xiangyu would be exposed when she woke up, so you killed her. Then you took the battle axe and quietly escaped from the Cloud Palace. This is the truth." The imperial preceptor was stunned on the spot. On the surface, he looked angry and disdainful, but in the depths of his eyes, there was a hint of realization and uneasiness. "T. You're slandering me, you're slandering me." The imperial preceptor came back to his senses and blamed Ji Tianqing angrily. Emperor of Tiandao was also filled with indignation. He said to Lu Ming, "Lord, you saw it with your own eyes. Long Tian is spouting nonsense, fabricating and slandering the imperial preceptor." He did this to clear his name and shift the blame to the imperial preceptor. Lu Ming did not express his opinion. He took a deep look at Ji Tianqing before saying, "Search the imperial preceptor, check his interspatial ring and his residence. As long as we find that king-level battle axe, the truth will be revealed." Ji Tianqing nodded slightly in agreement. Emperor of Tiandao was a little hesitant, but the imperial preceptor straightened his neck and said, "Search, go ahead and search. I have a clear conscience, I'm not afraid of you searching." Next, Lu Ming personally searched the imperial preceptor's body and checked his interspatial ring. Emperor of Tiandao led a large group of imperial guards. Under the supervision of Lu Ming and Ji Tianqing, they searched the palace where the imperial preceptor lived. Under the divine senses of the two god kings, everything in the imperial preceptor's residence was investigated clearly. Not even a speck of dust was left behind. However, after busying themselves for an hour, they still ended up empty-handed. That king-level battle axe was nowhere to be seen. Ji Tianqing fell silent instantly, frowning as he pondered. Emperor of Tiandao was relieved. The imperial preceptor was smug as he sneered. "Long Tian, what else do you have to say now? You're the real culprit, but you want to shift the blame to me? No way." Lu Ming did not express his opinion. He looked at Ji Tianqing and asked secretly through voice transmission, "Brother Long, do you have any other ideas?" Ji Tianqing replied through voice transmission, "At present, it seems that the imperial preceptor has been cleared of suspicion, but I'm still certain that he's the culprit." After pausing for a moment, he said in a serious tone, "However, I have a bold idea. He's actually just an accomplice. The real culprit is someone else." "Oh." Lu Ming was stunned for a moment and said in a strange tone, "Brother Long, why am I confused by you?" Ji Tianqing continued to explain. "Then let's put it in simpler terms. The imperial preceptor had no intention of killing Xiangyu, but he was possessed by a god-king powerhouse." This? Lu Ming hesitated. He pondered in his heart, unable to make a judgment. Ji Tianqing added, "I believe you saw it just now. The imperial preceptor's gaze is problematic. He's obviously guilty. However, while he's guilty and fearful, he's also at a loss. This means that he knows that he killed Xiangyu, but he doesn't remember what happened. I'm guessing that the person who possessed him made use of his identity to kill Xiangyu and snatch the king-level battle axe." Chapter 3588. Lu Ming was silent for a moment, not knowing what to say. He carefully recalled the look in the state preceptor's eyes and frowned for a while before saying with a bitter smile, "Brother Long, this is really a bold guess." He felt that Ji Tianqing's guess was a little shocking and even whimsical. but he had to admit that there might be such a possibility. After all, he could see that there was indeed something wrong with the state preceptor. At this time, the state preceptor and emperor of Tian phenomenon saw that Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming were silent and took the initiative to speak. Sir Governor, the truth has already surfaced. Long Tian is the real murderer. I implore your excellency to uphold justice for this subordinate and give my daughter justice. Sir Governor, Long Tian's slandering words are really clumsy. Given your great talent, you can't possibly believe it, right? Hearing the state preceptor and emperor of Tian phenomenon chiming in, Peng Fei, who had been silent all this while, suddenly spoke up. No matter what, I believe that Senior Long Tian would never kill Xiang Yu. If an expert with such a noble status like him really killed a nobody, would he waste his time and effort coming here to prove his innocence? Emperor of Tian phenomenon and the state preceptor instantly glared at him. If not for the fact that he came with Lu Ming, they would have chased Peng Fei away. Lu Ming finally made up his mind. He looked at the state preceptor and emperor of Tian phenomenon with a solemn expression and said in a dignified tone, "There are still some suspicious points in this matter. The truth has yet to be clarified. Don't be anxious." Huh. Sir Governor, you can't believe Long Tian's lies. The state preceptor and emperor of Tian phenomenon's expression changed instantly. They were filled with anxiety. Lu Ming ignored them and continued to discuss countermeasures with Ji Tianqing through voice transmission. Brother Long, since you think that a God-King powerhouse has taken over the state preceptor's body and caused this incident, then do you have any way to find clues related to that God-King? Ji Tianqing thought for a while and replied, I can use the soul-searching technique to check the state preceptor's soul memory. Maybe I can find some clues. Lu Ming frowned and said, soul-searching technique? Wouldn't it be very harmful to the soul? With the attitude of the imperial preceptor and the emperor of Tianxiang, how could they cooperate with you? Furthermore, after the deity king possessed the imperial preceptor and stole the king-grade battle axe, he erased all memories related to it. He must have escaped long ago. No matter what, I still want to try. Ji Tianqing's attitude was very firm. Lu Ming hesitated for a moment before he nodded. All right, we'll do as you say. Ji Tianqing no longer hesitated. He turned around and stared at the imperial advisor. His eyes turned dark gold as they stared at each other. Just as the imperial preceptor realized that something was wrong and was about to close his eyes, Ji Tianqing had already used the soul-searching divine technique and invaded his divine soul. Shua! Formless spiritual power forced its way into the imperial advisor's spiritual soul and read his memories. The imperial preceptor could not bear the pain of his divine soul being torn apart. His whole body convulsed and he screamed in pain a few times before he fainted. The emperor of Tian Myriad Kingdom rushed towards Ji Tianqing in a fit of rage, wanting to stop him. Long Tian, you scoundrel, what are you doing? Not only did you kill my daughter, but you also want to kill the imperial preceptor in public? The emperor of Tian Myriad's sovereign roared furiously. However, he was stopped by Lu Ming as soon as he took a step forward. The emperor of Tian Myriad's sovereign was even more indignant. He questioned with a voice full of grievances, Lord. Long Tian distorted the truth and slandered the imperial preceptor. He even wanted to kill the imperial preceptor in public. Are you going to sit back and do nothing? Lu Ming said expressionlessly. He's just investigating the truth. Seeing his attitude, the emperor of Tian Myriad's sovereign knew that he supported Ji Tianqing. He was even more indignant and aggrieved. However, he was not so angry that he lost his rationality. No matter what, he did not dare to resist. Very soon 100 breaths passed. Ji Tianqing ended his spellcasting and withdrew his spiritual power. The imperial preceptor was still unconscious and had fallen asleep on the ground. The emperor of Tian Myriad's sovereign hurriedly checked on him. Seeing that his life was not in danger, he heaved a sigh of relief. Lu Ming looked at Ji Tianqing and asked, How is it? Have you found any clues? Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and said with a serious expression, As you expected, the memories of that godly king expert have all been deleted. However, from these traces we can still conclude a few clues. Lu Ming was a little disappointed and his eyes dimmed. Peng Fei stared at Ji Tianqing expectantly. He was guessing and analyzing Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming's plan. After all, the two of them had communicated through voice transmission previously and Peng Fei did not know. Ji Tianqing said seriously, first, that God King's strength is not too strong or too weak. He should be a middle-level God King. Second, as early as 10 days ago, the Imperial Preceptor was possessed by that God King. Third, on the day Xiang Yu was killed and the King-level battle axe was stolen, that God King escaped. Lu Ming nodded and said in a complicated tone, although these 3 points can be confirmed and can be considered as part of the clues, we still have no clue. But we still have no clue. How can we find that deity king? After hearing Ji Tianqing's words, Peng Fei, who was at the side, immediately understood what he meant. He seemed to have thought of something and instantly revealed a thoughtful expression. Ji Tianqing asked Lu Ming, "It's not easy to meet a God King powerhouse. As the lord of a domain, you should know which God King came to the Green Lotus region during this period, right?" Lu Ming revealed a helpless and bitter smile and spread his hands. "The Green Lotus region is so big and I have been staying in the domain chief's manor. How would I know? Unless the other party appeared in an empire and did something, my subordinates would only report it." Ji Tianqing's expression dimmed. He sighed and said, "If that's the case, then it will be difficult to find the real culprit." Lu Ming nodded in agreement and could only sigh helplessly. Since they could not find the real culprit, they could not give Tianxiang Emperor an explanation. Lu Ming's and Ji Tianqing's expressions did not look too good. At this moment, Peng Fei suddenly interjected, "Uncle Master, Senior Long Tian, I know of a God King who appeared in the Green Lotus region recently." Upon hearing this, Ji Tianqing's and Lu Ming's eyes lit up. "Who is it?" the two of them asked in unison. Peng Fei smiled and said, "The Heavenly Wolf King of the Tianren region." "Uncle Master, you should know him?" "Of course I know him." Lu Ming nodded without hesitation and explained, "This person is one of the 4 God Kings of the Tianren region. However, his character and reputation are extremely bad. He is the most ferocious and overbearing one. He is a middle-level God King and his strength is second only to the domain chief and deputy chief. He has been in the Tianren region for tens of thousands of years and has established a very powerful force. That force covers 7 empires and has thousands of elite experts. In the Tianren region, he is considered to be able to cover the sky with one hand. Moreover, the Heavenly Wolf King is greedy and bloodthirsty. He is violent and perverse. The force that he established commits all kinds of evil. He wantonly plunders and snatches the resources and wealth of the Tianren region, seriously threatening the position of the chief of the Tianren region." Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 3589. In the past few thousand years, the Tianren domain lord could still tolerate it. He only reminded the Heavenly Wolf King in private not to go overboard. Who knew that the Heavenly Wolf King was so arrogant that he did not take the domain lord seriously at all, and continued to do things his own way. In the past 2,000 years, the Heavenly Wolf King's methods had become more and more overbearing and ferocious, causing the various empires in the Tianren domain to complain. The Tianren domain lord also became enemies with him many times and gradually became enemies. In the end, the Tianren domain lord could not take it anymore and took action 10 years ago. He gathered a large number of troops and used all the power of the Tianren domain. He also invited the help of 2 domain lords to join forces and annihilate the Heavenly Wolf King's forces. More than half of the elites under the Heavenly Wolf King were killed and the rest surrendered. Even his right-hand men had been killed by the domain lord of benevolence in order to cover his escape. Since then, the severely injured Heavenly Wolf King had disappeared without a trace. Everyone thought that he must have fled to a faraway region or even to other continents. Unexpectedly, he actually came to the Green Lotus region. Lu Ming was very clear about the Heavenly Wolf King's deeds and his enmity with the Tianren domain lord. Although he could not finish talking about the Heavenly Wolf King's life history even if he talked for 3 days and 3 nights. However, Lu Ming made it short. In just a moment, Ji Tianqing understood the Heavenly Wolf King's identity and situation. Peng Fei nodded repeatedly to express his agreement. Yes, Martial Uncle is right. The Heavenly Wolf King is a notorious butcher and demon. Not only do the people of the Tianren domain hate him, but even the people of the Green Lotus region fear him when they hear of his evil name. Lu Ming suddenly thought of a problem and frowned. Peng Fei, I didn't even know that the Heavenly Wolf King had appeared. How did you know? Peng Fei smiled and scratched his head. Of course it's master. Impossible. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Lu Ming flatly denied and said in a firm tone, if your master knew of this news, he would definitely inform me immediately. After all, one of the 2 domain lords who helped the Tianren domain lord eliminate the Heavenly Wolf King was me. Peng Fei was embarrassed and smiled. Martial uncle, haven't I left Mount Wuhua these 2 years and been wandering around outside? As you know, I like to wander around, gather information and do some business. Ji Tianqing immediately revealed a smile, nodded and said, yes, this kid wanted to sell me a piece of information in the Rainpool City, and cheated me of 20 million. Lu Ming frowned fiercely. He looked at Peng Fei with a sharp gaze and reprimanded, you're really daring. You dare to lie to anyone. Fortunately, you met Brother Long this time. If it were any other divine king, you wouldn't even know when you'd lose your little life. Peng Fei was even more embarrassed and said with an embarrassed smile, Martial uncle, I'm doing business properly. How can it be called cheating? Ji Tianqing smiled and waved his hand. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Let's talk about the Heavenly Wolf King. Lu Ming nodded slightly and said seriously, if the clues provided by Peng Fei are accurate, then we can basically confirm that the real culprit should be the Heavenly Wolf King. Other divine king powerhouses could not do this sort of thing, but the Heavenly Wolf King would not shrink from committing all sorts of atrocities. He could absolutely do it. The problem now is, where do we go to find the Heavenly Wolf King? Ji Tianqing said calmly, as long as we know who the real culprit is, it'll be easy to find him with a target. Although the Heavenly Wolf King has already left for several days, nobody dares to guarantee whether he's still hiding in the imperial capital. Let's start searching from the imperial capital first. Lu Ming agreed. Peng Fei had no objections to. Hence, the first step of the plan was decided like this. On the other side, the unconscious state preceptor gradually woke up. Tian Myriad Emperor was long dumbfounded, although he was very indignant and hated Ji Tianqing to the core. But just now, when he heard Ji Tianqing, Lu Ming, and Peng Fei's conversation, he understood what was going on. Although he was somewhat in disbelief, he did not have the right to speak and could only carry out Lu Ming's orders. Very soon, Tian Myriad Emperor sent out thousands of imperial guards under Lu Ming's instructions to search for traces of the Heavenly Wolf King, all over the imperial capital. Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming also split up, casting mystic arts and searching a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. However, the search operation lasted for 6 hours and ended in failure. Not only did the imperial guards find nothing, but Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming also did not detect the aura of the Heavenly Wolf King. Both of them returned to the Cloud Palace and met to discuss the next step of the plan. At present, it seems that the Heavenly Wolf King has already left the imperial capital and fled elsewhere. Then where are we going to find him next? That guy is now a wandering ghost. His whereabouts are mysterious and unpredictable. These few days are enough for him to leave the Green Lotus region and flee to other regions. If that's the case, then it's like looking for a needle in a haystack for us to find him. Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming had a discussion and both of them looked gloomy. Just as they had found the key clue and confirmed the culprit, they did not expect the clue to be cut off again. Just as both of them were at their wits' end, Peng Fei suddenly said, Martial Uncle Senior Long Tian, do you think the Heavenly Wolf King might have gone to the benevolent region? Upon hearing this, Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming were stunned for a moment before they shook their heads. 10 years ago, he was seriously injured and finally escaped from the benevolent region. How could he possibly go back? Unless he's crazy. The benevolent region lord has a deep grudge with him. He will definitely go back to take revenge, but not now. In just 10 years, even if he had a fortuitous encounter, it's impossible for his realm to skyrocket. Both of their words made sense, but Peng Fei still insisted on his opinion and analyzed. Although my idea is indeed a little ridiculous and unrealistic, I feel that given the Heavenly Wolf King's character, he might really do such a thing. The most important reason is that there's a divine dragon mystic realm in the benevolent region. If the Heavenly Wolf King wants to take revenge, he has to quickly increase his strength or find a fortuitous encounter. Isn't that divine dragon mystic realm an opportunity for him? Lu Ming thought about it seriously and nodded. That makes sense. That Heavenly Wolf King has never been someone who follows the rules. He doesn't play by the rules either. Even if it's risky for him to return to the benevolent region, as long as the temptation is big enough, he might still take the risk. Ji Tianqing also nodded and said, judging from the Heavenly Wolf King's style of doing things, he's not only cruel and ruthless, but also very sinister and cunning. Before he has enough strength to take revenge, he will definitely not expose his identity, much less let the benevolent region lord know. Even if he returns to the benevolent region, he will try to conceal and disguise himself. We still have to pay attention to distinguish. Lu Ming thought for a moment and made a decision. All right, then let's go to the benevolent region and make a trip to the divine dragon mystic realm. Peng Fei, of course, raised both hands in agreement. He said with anticipation, yes. In this way, even if we don't find the Heavenly Wolf King, we won't return empty-handed and make a wasted trip. Chapter 3590. The second step of the plan was decided just like that. Tianxiang and the state preceptor watched from the side, not even qualified to interrupt. Seeing that things were developing in a direction they could not understand, both of them had strange expressions, wanting to say something but hesitating. But Lu Ming did not give them a chance to speak. After giving a few instructions, he left with Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei. Xiangjioga, I'll head to the Tianren region now to capture the real culprit personally. You stay in the capital and wait for news. As for the state preceptor, although he is not the real culprit, he is an accomplice. You have to watch him closely. With that, Lu Ming's divine ship carried Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei out of the capital at lightning speed, disappearing into the horizon very quickly. Only the Emperor of Tianxiang and the state preceptor were left. Both of them looked at each other speechlessly. After a long silence, the Emperor of Tianxiang said in a complicated tone, "State preceptor, tell me the truth. Did you kill Xiang Yu?" The state preceptor's body stiffened, his expression becoming very awkward. He hurriedly denied it. "Your Majesty, how can you believe them?" But before he could finish, the Emperor of Tianxiang shouted angrily, "Shut up! The truth has already surfaced. Are you still going to put on an act with me? If you tell me the truth, I can still be lenient. But if you continue to evade, I can only—" There was no need to say the latter part. Everyone was well aware of it. The state preceptor's body trembled, and he closed his eyes in pain. He said in a mournful tone, "Your Majesty, what they said is all true. The one who killed the little princess was indeed me. But I didn't know about this matter, and it was definitely not my intention. Including the memories of those few days, I have a blank slate." The Emperor of Tianxiang originally believed Ji Tianqing's judgment. After getting the state preceptor's confirmation, he no longer had any doubts. His heart was heavy, and he said in a low voice with a mournful expression, "Celestial Wolf King, Celestial Wolf King, you're a high and mighty middle-level god king, an existence comparable to a region master. Why would you do such a deranged thing? Why would you kill a divine lord realm girl? What kind of sin did my Tianxiang kingdom commit to attract such a murderous god?" The imperial preceptor was startled for a moment before he hurriedly replied, "Your Majesty, this matter is all Long Tian's fault. Although the little princess was not killed by him, she died because of him. It was definitely his appearance that had attracted the Heavenly Wolf King. After all, he was the godly monarch of the dragon race. If the Celestial Wolf King possessed him or refined him, he would soar to the heavens. The king-grade god artifact that he gave to the little princess was the main reason why the Heavenly Wolf King tried to kill him." Tianxiang's emperor furrowed his brows and said through gritted teeth, "That makes sense. Originally, we thought that we had wronged him, but now it seems that we were right to hate him. He was a jinx. He's the one who killed Xiang Yu. That's not right." Halfway through his words, Emperor Tian Myriad suddenly realized a problem. "Imperial preceptor, When the heavenly wolf demon king came to the capital to possess you, Long Tian hadn't appeared yet. The state preceptor's face stiffened, and he was dumbfounded once again. Emperor Tian Myriad's face darkened again. After a long silence, he said in a low voice, "State preceptor, you'll stay in the celestial pagoda from now on. Without my permission, you're not allowed to take half a step out." The state preceptor understood what this meant, but he was powerless to refute. He could only acknowledge the order and leave with a gloomy expression. The divine cruiser sped through the sea of clouds, heading straight for the benevolent region. Inside the divine cruiser, Ji Tianqing, Lu Ming, and Peng Fei each had a secret room to recuperate. However, Lu Ming had been focused on steering the divine cruiser. Peng Fei, on the other hand, pestered Ji Tianqing, constantly asking questions and trying to worm his way into being friends. "Senior Long Tian, how did you get to know my martial uncle?" Ji Tianqing sat on the old-fashioned wooden armchair and closed his eyes to rest. His tone was calm as he replied, 1,000 years ago, at a godly monarch exchange in the Xingyuan continent, I heard from my martial uncle that you were once a peerless genius whose name spread all over the world and crushed countless geniuses. Not only the Xingyuan continent, but even the 5 continents of the dragon realm are praising your deeds? It's not that exaggerated. It's just hearsay. Sai, don't be so humble. Can you tell me about your deeds back then? For example, your most glorious battle record, your most dangerous experience. You're very interested in the godly monarch's affairs. Yes, I guess so. But aren't your martial uncle and your master godly monarchs? Sai, what's so interesting about their trivial matters? Their lives are ordinary and uneventful. The walls have ears. Your martial uncle is steering the divine cruiser. I didn't say anything just now. Martial uncle won't take issue with me. Forget it, Senior Long Tian, let's change the topic. Do you think it's possible for us to obtain the Dragon Ball in this trip to the Divine Dragon Mystic Realm? Or the legacy of the Divine Dragon? Then will the Divine Dragon in the Mystic Realm be a red dragon, a golden dragon, a black dragon, or an azure dragon? Peng Fei's tone was a little excited. Obviously, he was very agitated. Ji Tianqing opened his eyes and looked at him expressionlessly. He said indifferently, "None of us have been to that mystic realm. Who can predict the future? Also, don't be too optimistic. There are at least 8,000, if not 10,000 mystic realms like this in the Dragon Realm. Most of them are just rumors. In reality, there isn't even a single dragon scale." Peng Fei immediately became listless, but he was only depressed for a while. He became lively again and activated his chatterbox mode. "Senior Long Tian, may I ask, what kind of dragon are you? I heard that the red dragon's personality is explosive, the golden dragon is noble, the black dragon is gloomy and overbearing, and the azure dragon is kind and amiable. Based on your personality, you should be a golden dragon, right?" Ji Tianqing chose to remain silent and ignored him. Peng Fei was not embarrassed at all. He asked shamelessly, "Senior Long Tian, when the time is right, can you reveal your true form and let me see the grace of a divine dragon? I haven't seen a divine dragon with my own eyes in all my life." Seeing that Ji Tianqing was still silent, he added, "You see, I revealed my true form as a great rock before and was your mount. As long as you reveal your true form a little and let me broaden my horizons, I am willing to be your mount for a month." Seeing that Peng Fei was chattering and not giving up, Ji Tianqing was completely helpless. He opened his eyes again and said earnestly, "Peng Fei, you are a pure-blooded golden-winged great rock. Among the 7 ancestors of the demon race, your status is second only to the Kuan race. Can you be calm and steady? Don't embarrass the rock race, okay?" Peng Fei's spirit was instantly dispirited. He was embarrassed and helpless. He laughed bitterly at himself and said, Not only do they say so, even you think so too? Forget it, I am the most useless and embarrassing golden rock anyway." After he finished speaking, he bowed towards Ji Tianqing and said calmly, "Senior Long Tian, I have offended you just now. Please rest, I will not disturb you any longer. I will take my leave now." Looking at his lonely back as he turned and left, Ji Tianqing frowned slightly and revealed a thoughtful expression. Chapter 3591. Peng Fei, who was originally very talkative, became silent after being dealt a blow by Ji Tianqing. At least he looked more normal now, even a little dignified and serious. Ji Tianqing was happy to have some peace and quiet. He was quite satisfied with this result. 2 days later, the divine warship finally arrived at the Mirage Sea forest of the Tianren region. Lu Ming was more well-informed than Peng Fei. Peng Fei only knew the approximate location of the divine dragon mystic realm, but Lu Ming had already found out that the mystic realm was deep in the Mirage Sea forest. This place was very desolate. It was a primitive forest with a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles. There were high mountains and dangerous peaks everywhere. In the vast forest, there were countless birds and beasts, including some spirit beasts. In the past, this was a paradise for beasts. However, in recent days, most of the beasts in the forest were so scared that they ran around and hid. This was because elite experts from all over rushed into the Mirage Sea forest to search for the whereabouts of the divine dragon mystic realm. The Divine Lord experts moved in groups of more than 10 at the same time or in groups of 2 or 3 at the same time. Even if a group of beasts encountered them, they could not wait to avoid them. They were terrified and uneasy, afraid that they would be killed and their demon cores taken away. As for the various flying ships and divine warships that flew over the forest from time to time, they were extremely terrifying in the eyes of the beasts. They had to run as far away as possible. A few hours later, the divine warship arrived deep in the Mirage Sea forest and stopped in the air above a lush forest. At first glance, this forest looked very ordinary. There was nothing special about it. However, upon closer inspection, one would discover that this area with a radius of 10,000 miles was exceptionally flourishing and the divine power of heaven and earth was abnormally rich. Most of the surrounding forests were ancient trees that were 100 feet or hundreds of feet tall. The towering trees in this area were basically more than 1,000 feet tall. In the dense jungle, there were also many flowers and fruit trees, which were full of colorful flowers and fruits. Logically speaking, those divine flowers and fruits were great nourishment. Before they were fully ripe, they would have been snatched away by the beasts. However, in reality this area was very quiet. There were no beasts at all. Even snakes, ants, mosquitoes and insects did not dare to come close. Ordinary people would be puzzled. However, powerful experts like Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming could find out the reason. This was because this area was filled with a trace of dragon aura. The aura of a divine dragon. The dragon was the leader of all demons, the most powerful and noble existence. It was a natural deterrent to all demon beasts. No matter how many heaven and earth treasures there were, as long as there was the aura of a dragon, no demonic beasts would dare to approach. Swish! Swish! Lu Ming put away the divine warship. Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei appeared in the sky above the forest. The three of them looked down at the forest and observed with keen eyes. Lu Ming pointed to a certain place and said, "The big trees there are all over the place. There are also a few deep pits on the ground, as well as collapsed and broken trees. Obviously there was a fight there." Peng Fei was full of excitement. He couldn't hold back his anticipation and said, "This is the divine dragon's secret realm? There doesn't seem to be anything special about it. Is the secret realm hidden deep underground?" Ji Tianqing nodded and waved his hand, shooting out a bright golden light into the vast forest. In the blink of an eye, the forest and the earth split apart, revealing a wide ravine. "Let's go down and take a look." He took the lead and stepped into the ravine, flying toward the depths of the ground. Lu Ming and Peng Fei were stunned for a moment and quickly followed. Initially, Lu Ming wanted to remind Ji Tianqing that there were too many treasure hunters gathered here, and they had to be careful. But when the words reached his mouth, he swallowed them back down. After all, given his and Ji Tianqing's strength, they could travel unimpeded in the Star Source continent. What was there to be afraid of? Not long later, the three of them passed through thousands of miles of soil and stone and entered the depths of the ground. At this depth, there was basically no soil underground. It was all extremely hard rocks and mineral strata. In the rock strata and mineral strata, holes and cracks could be seen everywhere, even forming huge canyons. The scene here allowed Peng Fei and Lu Ming to see another kind of underground world. The three of them entered a spacious cave with a radius of 10 miles. Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and looked at the corner of the cave. Lu Ming and Peng Fei also stopped and looked in the direction of his gaze. They saw that in the dark cave, the ground and rock walls were emitting red light, shining like thousands of stars. Upon closer look, they realized that it was the ore mixed in the rock strata. The fire attribute divine level or was of a higher grade and contained abundant divine power. At the same time, Ji Tianqing could clearly sense that these rock strata and ores had been influenced by dragon power for a long time, and contained a faint dragon aura. In the corner of the cave, for godlord demons were carefully excavating the rock strata and mining the red ores. When Ji Tianqing, Lu Ming, and Peng Fei looked at them, they also noticed that the three of them had barged in. They immediately pulled out their swords and sabers vigilantly, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming did not think much of it, their expressions calm. However, Peng Fei raised his eyebrows, a look of anticipation in his eyes. He muttered, "Uncle Master Senior Long Tian, the ores here are of a higher grade and have abundant divine power. If they are mined and refined, they will definitely be valuable gems." What he meant was that he was already tempted. As for the four godlords mining the ores, he did not take them seriously at all. Anyway, the ores here were all treasures of heaven and earth and did not have an owner. Even if the godlords arrived first, as long as they were powerful enough, they could still take over the ores. After all, Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming could kill the four godlords instantly with a casual move. The heavenly world was a world where strength reigned supreme. The dragon realm was even more so, where the law of the jungle was followed and worshipped to the extreme. In the city and country, there were still moral and legal constraints. Once in such a desolate wilderness mystic realm treasure land, it would depend on whose fist was bigger. However, Lu Ming's reaction disappointed Peng Fei. He said in a calm tone, "We have another mission on hand. We are not here to explore and search for treasures." A simple sentence extinguished Peng Fei's thoughts of killing the demons and seizing the treasure. Oh. He could only nod to show that he understood, a look of disappointment flashing in his eyes. Ji Tianqing did not say much. He led the way through the dark cave and continued to fly deeper into the ground. His divine senses spread out, enveloping the rock strata in all directions as he probed the surrounding situation. Within a radius of 40,000 miles, he knew clearly where the godlords were, where the divine stone mines were, and where the dragon's aura was stronger. He could sense that the deeper they went, the stronger the divine dragon's aura was. This proved that this mystic realm was indeed related to the divine dragon, and it was even deeper underground. Soon Ji Tianqing and the other two left the cave, passing through the cracks and gullies in the rock strata and disappearing into the depths of the darkness. The four godlords of the demon clan secretly heaved a sigh of relief when they saw the three of them leaving. They hurriedly put away their weapons and increased their mining speed, not daring to stop at all. Chapter 3592. For most of the Sir Gods who came to explore, the mystic realm in the depths of the Mirage Sea Forest was full of mystery and danger. But for Ji Tianqing and the other two, this mystic realm was safer. At least, the three of them had not encountered any real danger until they went 30,000 miles underground. Even though they passed through many caves, ravines, and canyons along the way, there were many Sir Gods who were mining mineral veins and divine stones in groups. They were extremely hostile toward them. Some violent and arrogant Sir Gods even attacked them because they had the advantage in numbers. There were even some canyons and caverns that had divine Lord Realm monster beasts entrenched there, launching attacks on them. But these were not considered dangerous. Ji Tianqing did not have to do anything. Lu Ming killed those ignorant Sir Gods and demon beasts in a second with a few moves. Moreover, their goal was to find the Heavenly Wolf King. They were not interested in those valuable mineral veins and gemstones. As such, the three of them went all the way underground without causing much commotion or wasting much time. At 30,000 miles underground, Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and did not go any deeper. It should be around here. He could clearly sense that the divine dragon aura here was exceptionally rich. Therefore, he deduced that the core of the mystic realm was nearby. Lu Ming nodded. The dragon power here is very rich. If the Heavenly Wolf King came to this mystic realm, he would definitely be active in this area. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly. Let's look around. But we have to hide our strength and aura. Try not to alert the enemy. Okay. Lu Ming responded and hurriedly cast the divine power to conceal his aura. Ji Tianqing also hid his divine power aura and became an ordinary person without any divine power fluctuations. Even a middle-level Sir God like Lu Ming could not see through his background, let alone those Sir Gods. He did not feel threatened at all. As for Peng Fei, there was no need to hide his strength and aura at all. The three of them began to release their divine senses and cast their divine powers and secret skills to search and investigate in all directions. About 100 breaths later, Ji Tianqing suddenly detected a trace of obscure divine power fluctuation in a canyon 10,000 miles to the left. Even though the ripple of divine power had only flashed by, but he still captured it. Moreover, he could determine that it was the aura of a divine king powerhouse. Follow me. Therefore, he decisively brought Lu Ming and Peng Fei and rushed to the canyon at the fastest speed. It only took the three of them 30 breaths to pass through the solid and thick rock stratum and the dimly lit cave to arrive at the 100-mile-long canyon. The canyon was about 1,000 miles deep, with bare cliffs on both sides. Above the cliff, divine power rolled and surged, flashing with faint 5-colored divine light. 3 indistinct figures were standing on the cliff, overlooking the situation in the canyon. After observing and discussing for a while, they stepped into the canyon as if they were going to search for treasures. Ji Tianqing secretly probed and saw the strength of the 3 figures. The middle-aged demon clan leader was a middle divine king. He was a fox clan man with a head full of white hair. The other 2 armor-clad Fae were high divine lords. Seeing that the 3 of them were about to enter the canyon, he no longer hesitated. He crossed 100 miles in one step and appeared above the canyon, blocking the path of the 3 of them. Stop right there. Lu Ming and Peng Fei hurriedly followed and stood side by side with Ji Tianqing, staring coldly at the 3 Fae. The 3 Fae were cautious to begin with. Suddenly they saw Ji Tianqing and the other 2 blocking their path. They stopped in their tracks full of wariness. Especially the 2 armored Fae. They even took out their divine weapons and surged with divine power, ready to attack at any time. Both parties exchanged glances. The next moment, Lu Ming and the white-haired Fox Clan man were stunned, revealing a stunned expression at the same time. "It's you!" The 2 of them exclaimed in unison, their expressions becoming strange. Ji Tianqing frowned, vaguely feeling that something was amiss. It seemed that he might have blocked the wrong person. True enough. Lu Ming nodded slightly at the white-haired Fox Clan man and greeted him, asking, "Fox Moon Divine King, why are you here?" The Fox Moon Divine King cupped his hands and bowed, saying, "Greetings, Protectorate Lord Lu Ming. I didn't expect this small Mirage Sea mystic realm to attract such a distinguished person like Protectorate Lord Lu." Ji Tianqing did not say anything and cast an inquiring look at Lu Ming. Lu Ming hurriedly introduced, "Brother Long, this is the Fox Moon Divine King, the Deputy Protectorate Lord of the Tianren region." Ji Tianqing then came to a realization, a look of embarrassment flashing in his eyes. Obviously, he had made a mistake. Next, Lu Ming introduced Ji Tianqing to the Fox Moon Divine King. Since both parties knew each other and Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King were on good terms, both parties let down their guard and began to chat. The Fox Moon Divine King explained to Lu Ming, since the battle 10 years ago, the Protectorate Lord was injured and has been in seclusion. I have been presiding over the affairs of the Tianren region all these years. The discovery of the mystic realm in the Mirage Sea forest this time seems to be related to the Divine Dragon. I have nothing to do, so I came to take a look at the situation and try my luck at the same time. Even a middle-level 4th-degree Divine King like him was interested in the Divine Dragon mystic realm. If he could obtain the legacy of a divine dragon of the Divine King realm or related treasures, it would be greatly beneficial. After saying that, the Fox Moon Divine King asked Lu Ming again, "Protectorate Lord Lu, you and Brother Long are not also here for the legacy of the divine dragon in the mystic realm, right?" Lu Ming hurriedly waved his hands and explained, "Fox Moon Divine King, you must be joking. Whether there is the legacy of the divine dragon in the mystic realm is something unknown. We don't have the leisure to do so. To be honest, we came to the Mirage Sea forest this time to hunt down the Heavenly Wolf King." What? Suddenly hearing the three words Heavenly Wolf King, the Fox Moon Divine King's expression changed drastically. His pupils constricted and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. He was full of shock and revealed an expression of disbelief. He lowered his voice and asked, "Protectorate Lord Lu, this is not a joke. Are you sure the Heavenly Wolf King has appeared? Furthermore, why would the Heavenly Wolf King dare to return to the benevolent region and even dare to come to the Mirage Sea Forest?" Lu Ming's expression was solemn as he said in a solemn tone, "Fox Moon Divine King, this seat is not joking with you. This is a long story, please allow this seat to slowly explain." Following that, he briefly explained the cause and process of the matter to the Fox Moon Divine King. After the Fox Moon Divine King finished listening, his expression immediately turned grave and he frowned. "I see. I didn't expect that the Heavenly Wolf King recovered from his injuries so quickly. He really doesn't change his nature. This time he appeared and started to harm the common people again. Protectorate Lord Lu, the Heavenly Wolf King is our common enemy. Since you guys are here to capture him, then count this king in too." Lu Ming naturally agreed and hurriedly nodded and said, "That's great. Let's act separately and exchange information. Not only can we look after each other, it's also easy to find him." The Fox Moon Divine King expressed his agreement but sighed somewhat regretfully. It's a pity that His Excellency the Protectorate Lord is in close seclusion to recuperate. Otherwise, this king will definitely report this matter. His greatest regret is that he let the Heavenly Wolf King escape back then, and was not able to kill him. Chapter 3593. It was impossible for the Benevolence Domain Lord to come. However, the addition of the Fox Moon Divine King was also good news for Lu Ming. After discussing the plan, the two of them began to split up. The Fox Moon Divine King and two guards stepped into the canyon where divine power searched. While searching for treasures, they were also searching for traces of the Heavenly Wolf King. Lu Ming, Ji Tianqing, and Peng Fei continued to search ahead, using their divine senses to explore the various caves and canyons. During this period, the three of them also discovered a few caves that contained a large number of divine stones. In fact, there was even a vein that was dozens of miles long hidden in one of the deep canyons. The value of these cultivation resources was not low. They added up to a large sum of wealth. However, Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming did not care. They only focused on releasing their divine senses to search for traces of the Heavenly Wolf King. However, after Peng Fei saw these divine stones and mineral veins, he could no longer move. He was very tempted. After apologizing to Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming, he began to collect those divine stones and try to excavate the mineral vein in the canyon. Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming both expressed their opposition and tried to persuade Peng Fei. However, Peng Fei was insistent on excavating the divine stones and mineral veins. The two of them could not persuade him otherwise. Helpless, the two of them could only let Peng Fei collect the divine stones and mineral veins. The two of them continued to release their divine senses and use their divine powers and secret skills to search for the whereabouts of the Heavenly Wolf King. Peng Fei was very busy. In his eyes there were only the priceless divine stones and mineral veins. Even as Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming walked further and further away, Peng Fei did not notice. 15 minutes later, Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming separately searched a radius of 50,000 miles, but they did not find anything. Not to mention the Heavenly Wolf King, they did not even meet a divine king. Those divine lord explorers did find a dozen of them, but the two of them could not be bothered. The two of them were helpless. They could only return to the agreed cave to discuss countermeasures. At this moment, the two of them sensed at the same time that there was a strong divine power fluctuation 20,000 miles in front of them. Immediately after, accompanied by waves of divine power fluctuations, there was a loud, dull sound. Clearly, in that region 20,000 miles away, not only did divine king powerhouses appear, a great battle even occurred. Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming glanced at each other. They quickly stopped their discussion and rushed toward that area. Swish! Both of them were as fast as light, passing through layers of caves, canyons, and cliffs. In a short span of 20 breaths, The two of them had traveled 20,000 miles underground and arrived at the scene of the incident. This was a huge abyss. On the left was a precipitous cliff that stretched for more than 200 miles. On the right was a dark and gloomy abyss, which was protected by a huge five-colored light barrier. It was bottomless. The five-colored light barrier was uniform and thick, and its defensive power was very strong. It shone with dazzling five-colored divine light, dispelling the nearby darkness. Even so, the five-colored light failed to illuminate the abyss. Ji Tianqing's and Lu Ming's divine senses were blocked by the colorful light shield, and they were unable to investigate the situation in the abyss. As for the source of the ripples of divine power and the loud noise, it was on the cliff to the left of the abyss. There were two groups of powerhouses, a total of 5 people, and they were fighting. On one side there were 3 people. They were Fox Moon Divine King and 2 armored guards. On the other side, there were 2 demon race divine kings who were well-dressed and had a dignified aura. The stronger divine king wore a fiery red robe and had antennae on his head. It was hard to tell what race he was from. The other divine king was a burly man from the divine tiger race with a dignified face. Although Fox Moon Divine King's side had the advantage of numbers, they were obviously not their match. However, they were clearly not a match for the 2 demon race god kings. They were beaten back repeatedly, riddled with wounds. The ordinary-looking red-robed divine king was entangled with Fox Moon Divine King, and completely suppressed him. It was obvious that he was stronger. No matter how Fox Moon Divine King unleashed his full strength and used all kinds of divine abilities, he could not defeat the red-robed divine king. Instead, he was in danger and could be severely injured at any time. As for the burly and dignified tiger race divine king, he was attacking the 2 guards of Fox Moon Divine King fiercely. How could 2 high-level Divine Lord Realm guards possibly withstand the attacks of middle-level divine kings? In a short moment, the 2 guards had their armors torn apart and their divine weapons defeated. Their bodies also became riddled with wounds, dripping with blood. Lu Ming was rather surprised and exclaimed softly, "Wasn't Fox Moon Divine King searching for the Celestial Wolf King? Why did he fight with those 2 divine kings? Among those 2 divine kings, there's no Celestial Wolf King either. And here, there's actually a defensive grand array?" Ji Tianqing's tone was calm as he said, "This light screen is a grand array that formed naturally after 10,000 years. The dragon aura here is very strong, rich to the extreme. If there are no accidents, this abyss under our feet should be the core of the mystic realm." Lu Ming pondered for a while and immediately came to a realization. He said it must be Fox Moon Divine King who found this place, thinking that he could find the treasure in the mystic realm right away. In the end, those 2 divine kings also found this place. Both parties fought over the treasure in the abyss, that's why they fought. Fox Moon Divine King did not inform us. Firstly, this matter has nothing to do with the Celestial Wolf King. Secondly, he wants to hog the treasure alone and is not willing to let us get a share? Regarding Lu Ming's guess, Ji Tianqing did not answer. His attention was on the 2 demon race godly monarchs. He vaguely sensed that there seemed to be something amiss with that red-robed divine king. Hence, he secretly cast the divine pupil mystic art and carefully observed that red-robed divine king. At this time, the situation in the field changed again. Just as Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming were observing the battle for a few breaths, Fox Moon Divine King's 2 guards were torn to pieces by the tiger race divine king, their divine bodies collapsing on the spot. The 2 guards' divine personas escaped in a panic from the sky full of blood and fragments, flying into the distance. But that tiger race divine king was long prepared. He brazenly brandished his palm and hacked out 2 streaks of golden light sharp blades, chopping towards the 2 guards' divine personas. It looked like the 2 guards' divine personas could not escape in time, and were about to be hacked into pieces immediately. Right at this critical juncture, Lu Ming finally made his move. Swoosh! Swoosh! He brandished both his fists and struck out 2 huge dark golden fist gleams, slamming hard against the golden light sharp blades. There was a crisp cracking sound and the 2 streaks of golden light sharp blades were smashed into pieces at the same time. The 2 guards' divine personas were finally out of danger. They did not dare to stay any longer and hurriedly fled to the edge of the abyss, burrowing into the cracks in the rock walls and escaping without a trace. At this time, the two demon race divine kings discovered Lu Ming's arrival and instantly looked as though they were facing a formidable enemy. Both of them revealed intense vigilance, especially that red-robed divine king. After seeing Lu Ming's appearance clearly, his pupils constricted and intense hatred flashed in his eyes. Lu Ming was conversing with the Fox Moon divine king, inquiring about the reason for the battle between both parties. He did not notice the subtle expression of the red-robed divine king, but Ji Tianqing had been observing the red-robed divine king, and of course caught this subtle change. Coupled with the results of his observation, he immediately made a judgment and shouted coldly, "Lu Ming, that guy is in disguise. He should be the celestial wolf king." Chapter 3594. What? Hearing Ji Tianqing's cold shout, Lu Ming was not the only one stunned. Even the Fox Moon divine king was stunned on the spot, her face full of astonishment. Both of them did not expect Ji Tianqing to make such a judgment. At the same time, the red-robed divine king's expression changed drastically. He glared at Ji Tianqing with a heart full of hatred and turned to fly away without hesitation, wanting to escape the abyss. After all, his disguise was exposed and his identity was exposed. Moreover, he only had the Tiger Divine King as his helper. The Fox Moon Divine King, Lu Ming, and Ji Tianqing. There were three Divine King powerhouses. The red-robed Divine King was very cautious and vigilant. Once he saw that the situation was not good, he fled decisively. However, his plan was destined to fail. Swoosh! With a flash of divine light, Ji Tianqing teleported 100 miles and blocked the red-robed Divine King's path. Lu Ming did not care about the Tiger Divine King and hurried over, blocking the red-robed Divine King's back. As such, the red-robed Divine King was surrounded from the front and back, unable to escape at all. His expression was as cold as ice, his eyes as sharp as a sword as he glared at Ji Tianqing, his body exuding a biting cold murderous intent. However, he remained silent in case he revealed any flaws. Lu Ming was still in disbelief as he asked Ji Tianqing, "Brother Long, you said that this guy is the Celestial Wolf King in disguise?" "Of course." Ji Tianqing nodded and said in a certain tone, "I observed carefully just now. Even though he unleashed all his strength, he still held back. That's because he wanted to retain a portion of his divine power to maintain a disguise of changing his appearance. However, no matter how he changed his appearance and concealed his divine power aura, he could not change his divine soul. I observed his divine soul and can tell that he is a dark silver celestial wolf. Also, the changes in his eyes and expression show that he knows the Fox Moon Divine King and you. Especially you. He has great hatred and fear." Ji Tianqing's analysis was clear and thorough. Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King heard it clearly. The two of them came to a sudden realization and immediately believed Ji Tianqing's judgment. As for the red-robed God King, he was filled with shock and disbelief. He looked at Ji Tianqing in great fear and asked, "Who are you?" Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile as he said, "Who I am is not important. The key is that we know who you are." Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King stared at the red-robed Divine King and sneered. "Celestial Wolf King, stop pretending. Reveal your true form. Heavenly Wolf King, we've already seen through your disguise. Is there a need for you to continue pretending?" The red-robed God King's expression was rather ugly. He stared at Ji Tianqing with a face full of resentment. He gritted his teeth and coldly shouted, "Little bastard, you win." As he spoke, his body lit up with dark silver starlight, and his body began to transform. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a middle-aged demon who was more than 10 feet tall. His body did not look burly and muscular, but it was abnormally tough and contained terrifying explosive power. His cheeks were thin and his chin was slightly sharp. There was a pair of dark green pupils in his eyes that flickered with a frightening cold light. The ears on both sides of his temples were pointed and stood up high. It was clearly a pair of wolf ears. Without a doubt, this was the true form of the Celestial Wolf King. Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King stared at him, their pupils constricting as a sinister sneer appeared on their faces. Celestial Wolf King, it's really you. Brother Long really has a discerning eye. You saw through the Celestial Wolf King's disguise with one look. At this very moment, Lu Ming was even more fearful and in awe of Ji Tianqing's strength and means. After all, he and Fox Moon Divine King were very familiar with the Celestial Wolf King, but they did not see through any clues. And Ji Tianqing had never seen the Celestial Wolf King before, but he could see through the Celestial Wolf King's disguise in such a short time. Such strength and means were simply astonishing. Since he had revealed his true form, the Celestial Wolf King no longer put on an act and immediately revealed his true form. He glared at Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King with a venomous gaze. He gritted his teeth and cursed, "You two damn bastards. Back then, if you did not side with the evildoers and help Qining deal with this king, how could this king lose to him? Everything that happened that day, this king remembers it well, and will not forget it for a moment. This king once swore that one day, this king will definitely turn all of you into ashes. Since you delivered yourselves to my doorstep today, this king will send you on your way." As he said that, the Celestial Wolf King's body lit up with a resplendent silver light, emitting an earth-shattering murderous aura. Not far away, the Tiger Race Divine King also realized that things were troublesome. They had met an extremely powerful opponent today. His expression was solemn and his eyes were grave. He silently took out a scarlet battle axe and held it tightly in his hands. Now, he was holding a battle axe and a spear in both hands. His aura was even more powerful. When the Tiger Race Divine King took out the battle axe, Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, his gaze fixed on the scarlet battle axe. Immediately, his brows relaxed, and the corners of his mouth curled into a cold smile. Looks like my deduction was right. It was indeed the Celestial Wolf King who possessed the State Preceptor and stole that battle axe. Lu Ming was about to fight with the Celestial Wolf King when he suddenly heard this. His gaze also landed on the scarlet battle axe. At the same time, the Tiger Race Divine King was stunned, revealing a puzzled expression. The Celestial Wolf King revealed a stunned expression, his eyes widening in disbelief. He looked at Ji Tianqing and said, "It's you. Could it be that you came here not by coincidence but to investigate that matter?" Clearly, the Celestial Wolf King had finally recognized Ji Tianqing. It was that dragon race youth who appeared in Tianxiang capital and caused a commotion in the city. Ji Tianqing sneered and said, "Celestial Wolf King, you admit that you possessed the State Preceptor and stole the battle axe. You also killed Xiang Yu?" As he said that, he held an image recording crystal in his left hand and recorded this scene. The Celestial Wolf King grinned coldly and said, I thought that I did things secretly and secretly. I didn't expect that you would still see through me, but you clearly left Tianxiang capital. Why are you still investigating this matter?" Ji Tianqing did not answer his question. Instead, he continued asking, "It's good that you admit to that matter. However, I still want to ask you one more thing. How did that battle axe end up in his hands?" After saying that, he pointed at the dazed Tiger Race Divine King. Clearly, the Tiger Race Divine King did not know that the scarlet battle axe in his hands had such a complicated origin. The Celestial Wolf King narrowed his eyes and stared at Ji Tianqing with a dark gaze. He said, "Kid, I really didn't expect you to be so capable. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have hesitated in Tianxiang capital back then. I should have killed you halfway back then and refined you." Ji Tianqing pondered for a moment and immediately understood what he meant. He analyzed and said, "Before I appeared in Tianxiang capital, you had already possessed the State Preceptor. Perhaps you had other plans previously. However, after I appeared, you wanted to kill me and refine my dragon race bloodline to become a noble dragon race member? However, you didn't have the confidence to kill me. You were also afraid that things would blow up and your identity would be exposed. You would then be hunted down by Lu Ming and the Tianren domain lord. Later on, you went to look for Xiang Yu and accidentally found her unconscious on the ground. The battle axe was placed on the table, so you stole it. You were afraid that Xiang Yu would be exposed when she woke up, so you killed her." Chapter 3595. Ha ha ha. I've really underestimated you. You're not bad. Your analysis is clear and logical, as if you've seen it with your own eyes. The Heavenly Wolf King stared sharply at Ji Tianqing, his tone revealing a piercing murderous intent. His words undoubtedly proved that Ji Tianqing's conjecture was correct. Lu Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief and gave Ji Tianqing a thumbs up in his heart. He recalled how he felt when Ji Tianqing raised this conjecture in the capital that day. He was very thankful that he had hesitated a little and chose to believe Ji Tianqing and accompany him to investigate the truth. If not, it would have become an unjust case, and the truth would not have come to light today. Lu Ming thought to himself, his abilities, methods, and intelligence are still the same as before. No, he's even more outstanding than before. Is the current him really a fallen genius? Lu Ming began to have doubts and even overturned his previous understanding. At this moment, Ji Tianqing put away the photographic crystal and sneered at the Heavenly Wolf King. Heavenly Wolf King, although you're very sinister and despicable, you still have some backbone and dare to admit that you did all this. The Heavenly Wolf King was about to speak. At this moment, the Tiger Tribe's Divine King finally asked the question in his heart after holding it in for a long time. He waved the crimson battle axe in his hand and questioned the Heavenly Wolf King. Heavenly Wolf King, didn't you tell me that this battle axe was personally refined by you? You even swore that you had mastered an extremely profound crafting technique. Not only can you refine inferior grade and middle grade king grade divine weapons, but you can even refine a superior grade king grade divine weapon? The Heavenly Wolf King was instantly embarrassed and stammered, unable to speak. The Tiger Tribe's Divine King continued to ask, Heavenly Wolf King, I believe you and treat you as a brother. How can you deceive me like this? It's just a mere inferior grade king grade battle axe. Although it's priceless, it's not enough to move me. I'm only willing to become sworn brothers with you on account of your sincerity and want to roam the world with you. I didn't expect that even this battle axe was stolen. The Tiger Tribe Godly Monarch realized that he had been tricked, and he angrily questioned the Heavenly Wolf Monarch. The Heavenly Wolf King sensed that something was amiss and hurriedly changed the topic. Golden Tiger King, now is not the time to talk about this. I will explain it to you later. Now these bastards want to take our lives. How can you believe their words? In fact, the Heavenly Wolf King and the Golden Tiger King had only known each other for a short while. The Golden Tiger King came from another region and lived in the northernmost part of the Astral Source continent. He did not understand the situation here. He knew nothing about Welkin Wolf King's past. On the other hand, the Heavenly Wolf King was an expert in acting and deceiving. He had successfully swindled the Golden Tiger King's trust. At the same time, he gave the Golden Tiger King the crimson battle axe he had stolen as a gift. The Golden Tiger King became hot-headed and swore to become sworn brothers with him. They swore that they would roam the world together and conquer the world together. However, the two of them were considered to have died before achieving victory. After becoming sworn brothers, the first great undertaking that the two of them worked together was to explore the Divine Dragon's secret realm. Obviously, it was destined to end in tragedy. Lu Ming saw the animosity between the Heavenly Wolf King and the Golden Tiger King, and he suddenly had an idea. He sneered and said, Golden Tiger King, you are definitely not from around here. Haha. If you had heard about the Heavenly Wolf King's reputation in the Tianren domain, you would not have been deceived by him. He is a well-known bastard and demon. He is sinister, despicable, cunning, and cruel. He has already reached the stage where he can stop children from crying at night. Listen to my advice and leave this place immediately. Don't be deceived and used by him again. The Heavenly Wolf King was anxious. He glared at Lu Ming with resentment and hurriedly persuaded the Golden Tiger King. Golden Tiger King, don't listen to this bastard's nonsense. He has a deep hatred for me. Of course, he will deliberately slander me. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, the Golden Tiger King waved his hand and said in a serious tone, Heavenly Wolf King, you don't have to worry. I am not the kind of person who will sail according to the wind. Although you have deceived me, I do believe the words of this protectorate Lord Lu. But this king will never run away from the battle, or even change sides at the last minute. That would be treacherous and despicable. The Golden Tiger King's honesty made the Heavenly Wolf King heave a sigh of relief. Lu Ming had failed to sow discord and was slightly embarrassed. He could only say regretfully, Golden Tiger King, although I admire your loyalty and trustworthiness, don't make a mistake. The Golden Tiger King did not appreciate his kindness. He held the long spear and the battle axe in his hands and roared with a murderous aura, "Stop talking nonsense. If you want to fight, let's fight. You are really stubborn." Lu Ming shouted coldly and stopped persuading the Golden Tiger King. He also took out the divine sword and quickly accumulated divine power. He raised it to the peak state and locked on to the Heavenly Wolf King's aura. The Heavenly Wolf King was attacked from both sides, but he was fearless. He sneered malevolently. "You want to kill me? Do you think you are worthy? Go to hell." As he roared, he waved his long pitch-black saber and slashed out a saber gleam that could split heaven and earth. He charged toward Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming. Above the abyss not far away, the Golden Tiger King also roared and waved his long spear and battle axe to attack the Fox Moon Divine King. An earth-shattering battle broke out immediately. The 5 Divine Kings used their special skills and tried to kill each other as quickly as possible. Swoosh! 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 Dazzling 5-colored divine light collided violently above the abyss, creating a series of earth-shattering explosions. The earth-shattering explosion created a violent shockwave that swept through everything around the abyss. The naturally formed 5-colored light shield shook violently from the impact and was on the verge of shattering. As for the cliffs and rock walls around the abyss, no matter how hard they were, they could not withstand such a terrifying impact and immediately collapsed, shattering thousands of miles away. The entire abyss was shaking violently. Everything within a 10,000-mile radius was shaking. There were also muffled rumbling sounds that spread underground. Countless pieces of rubble fell from the shattered walls into the abyss and smashed into the 5-colored light shield. Fortunately, this battle only lasted for 10 breaths of time before it ended quickly. If not, the entire abyss would have been destroyed. After more than 10 moves, the Heavenly Wolf King was killed by Ji Tianqing. With a move of the God-slaying sword, he cut the Heavenly Wolf King into 2 and destroyed his divine body. With another move of the Dragon Elephant Divine Fist, he shattered the Heavenly Wolf King's divine spark and killed him on the spot. Originally, Lu Ming could not do anything to the Heavenly Wolf King, even after 12 consecutive moves. He thought that there would be a tough battle today. He would probably have to fight for a few hours and only be able to severely injure the Heavenly Wolf King. If he was not careful, the Heavenly Wolf King might escape and he would have to hunt him down. However, he did not expect Ji Tianqing to kill the Heavenly Wolf King so easily and quickly. As a result, when the Heavenly Wolf King's divine spark was shattered, his face was filled with shock and disbelief. Ji Tianqing did not stop. With a wave of his hand, he put away the Heavenly Wolf King's divine spark fragments and charged toward the Golden Tiger King with his sword. Chapter 3596. The Golden Tiger King and the Fox Moon Divine King were close in strength. The two had only tested each other's strength after exchanging more than 10 moves. They had yet to go all out. It would take at least a few thousand moves to determine the winner. However, the Heavenly Wolf King was killed by Ji Tianqing within 10 breaths of time. The Golden Tiger King was not the only one who was dumbfounded. His body froze on the spot. Even the Fox Moon Divine King was taken aback. His eyes widened and he gasped. He looked at Ji Tianqing with eyes full of shock and awe. No one expected that the young man from the Dragon Clan who came with Lu Ming would have such terrifying strength. This was simply unbelievable. When Ji Tianqing pounced on the Golden Tiger King with the Sword of Burial of Heaven, he came back to his senses. The Golden Tiger King seemed to have woken up from a dream. Seeing the dazzling sword gleam magnifying in front of him and about to descend in the next moment, he suddenly let out a cry of horror. Without any hesitation, he instinctively dodged and wanted to escape from the abyss. Although he was honest, upright, and loyal, he was not a fool. The Heavenly Wolf King had already been killed. What was the point of persevering? It was wise to flee decisively. Unfortunately, under Ji Tianqing's sword, fleeing was useless. Bam! In an instant, the dazzling golden light struck the Golden Tiger King hard. The armor he was wearing and his strong and tough divine body were cut into two on the spot like paper. The Golden Tiger King's vitality was abnormally strong. Even after losing half of his divine body, he was still frantically fleeing. Ji Tianqing chased after him and gave him another sword strike, easily killing him. Bam! With a muffled sound, the sacred sword gleam that was hundreds of feet long struck the Golden Tiger King hard. Half of his body was cut into pieces. His divine core was also smashed into pieces. He died on the spot. Debris mixed with a rain of blood fell from the sky, mixed with more than 10 pieces of divine core fragments. Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a golden light to collect the divine core fragments. Of course, he did not let go of the Heavenly Wolf King and the Golden Tiger King's spatial rings and kept them as well. Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King were completely dumbfounded. Both of them stood rooted to the ground, staring at Ji Tianqing in horror. Their eyes were filled with shock and awe. It was only at this moment that they truly witnessed how terrifying Ji Tianqing's combat prowess was. Moonfox God King was still alright. He did not know Ji Tianqing. After coming back to his senses, he only felt that Ji Tianqing was extremely strong and his methods were terrifying. He was very respectful towards Ji Tianqing. At the same time, he was very envious of Lu Ming for being able to befriend such a powerful person. On the other hand, Lu Ming's feelings were much more complicated. While he was full of shock and emotions, he also secretly rejoiced. Oh my God! In this 1,000 years, Long Tian's strength realm did not change, but his combat strength and methods were several times stronger. Previously, I thought that he was a fallen genius and that it would be difficult for him to achieve great things in the future. Now it seems that I was too ignorant and short-sighted. I'm sure that he has been accumulating and strengthening his foundation for the divine Tao for the past 1,000 years. Only by accumulating will he be able to break through to a higher realm. Perhaps it won't be long before he breaks through to become a high-level God King and becomes famous again? Fortunately, I was still polite to him previously and did not create any unpleasantness. If I really fell out with him and even fought with him, the person who would be dead now would be me. Unknowingly, Lu Ming's attitude towards Ji Tianqing became more and more respectful and polite. When the divine light in the sky dissipated and the loud, dull sound dissipated, Ji Tianqing flew in front of Lu Ming and handed him the photographic crystal. I have already recorded the scene of the Heavenly Wolf King admitting his guilt. Take this photographic crystal, and you will be able to answer to the Emperor of Tianxiang. Lu Ming hurriedly accepted the photographic crystal and nodded. Brother Long is very thoughtful. This matter has finally come to light and been resolved satisfactorily. Ji Tianqing nodded slightly and pointed to the 5-colored light shield beneath his feet. The core of the mystic realm should be below this abyss. Let's go and take a look. That's what I was thinking. Lu Ming naturally could not ask for more and quickly nodded in agreement. The Fox Moon Divine King also hurriedly took the initiative to introduce Territorial Lord Lu, Young Master Long. I have explored this abyss before. The divine array that shrouds the abyss does not seem to be man-made but formed naturally. Originally, with our strength and means, it would take some effort to crack the divine array. Now that the divine array has been battered to pieces, we can easily crack it. Although he was introducing the situation of the abyss, he had unknowingly closed the distance between him and Ji Tianqing and Lu Ming. At the same time, he also vaguely expressed his intention to participate in the exploration, and wanted to have a share of the loot. The Fox Moon Divine King was indeed from the Fox clan. Naturally, he was quick-witted and not annoying. Ji Tianqing did not refuse and said with an indifferent expression, "Then let's go down and take a look." With that, he waved his sword and slashed out a ray of sword light, breaking the messy 5-colored light shield and stepping into it first. Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King hurriedly followed and passed through the crack in the 5-colored light shield and entered the abyss. The three of them flew all the way down and arrived at the bottom of the abyss after flying for a few hundred miles. Looking from above, the abyss had a radius of 300 miles. But in reality, this abyss was like a deep pit, big at the top and small at the bottom. The bottom of the abyss only had a radius of 100 miles and there were jagged rocks everywhere, uneven and bumpy. The area in the middle was still considered flat but was covered with large amounts of gravel and soil. Between the gravel and soil, there were some strange red rocks that stood between the rocks occasionally. At first glance there was nothing unusual. However, Ji Tianqing could tell with a single glance that those lone crimson rocks were not real rocks. They were the skeletons of divine dragons. The entire abyss was filled with an extremely strong dragon's aura. All the soil and rocks had been eroded by the dragon's aura for more than 10,000 years, and were dyed red with blood. It was no exaggeration to say that the rock walls, rocks and soil in this abyss had all become priceless treasures. Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King were stunned for a moment and also realized this point. Instantly, they were so excited that their blood boiled and could not help but exclaim, "Oh my God! The divine dragon's aura here is actually so strong? That's a red rock? No, that seems to be the skeleton of a divine dragon. It's no wonder the rumors say that this mystic realm is related to divine dragons. I didn't expect that a dragon's corpse was buried here. This divine dragon had the strength of a god king when it was alive. We're rich." Just as the two of them were wild with excitement and their faces were flushed with excitement, Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out thousands of golden rays that disappeared into the abyss. As the golden light flashed, the gravel and soil within a radius of 100 miles were all cleaned up. Soon, a complete divine dragon's corpse was presented in front of the three of them. This was a crimson-red dragon that was 100 miles long. Even though the dragon's corpse had been buried for more than 10,000 years and its flesh had long disappeared, leaving behind only a skeleton, it still exuded a strong divine aura. Chapter 3597. Seeing the red dragon's skeleton with their own eyes, Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King were even more excited. The two of them surrounded the red dragon's skeleton. As they observed it carefully, they clicked their tongues in admiration. "I can't believe that this red dragon's skeleton is so well preserved. It's indeed a divine dragon. Even after more than 10,000 years, its skeleton is still intact and full of divine power. Be it refining divine weapons, divine pills, or setting up divine arrays, this dragon's skeleton is a top-notch material. Even 10 or 50 mineral veins can't compare to the value of this dragon's skeleton. This trip is worth it. It's really worth it." Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King exclaimed in admiration. In their minds, they were already fantasizing about what to do with this dragon's skeleton. At this moment, Ji Tianqing flew to the skull of the dragon's skeleton. The skull of a divine dragon was very complicated. It was densely packed with thousands of bones, forming layers of protective nets. He discovered that there was a fist-sized red crystal in the skull of this red dragon. It was still emitting a dim divine light. After careful observation, he was certain that it was an incomplete dragon ball. Half an incomplete dragon ball? It seems that this red dragon was severely injured when it was alive and was in a coma here for many years. In the end, its injuries did not heal on their own. Instead, they worsened and it died here. Ji Tianqing came to this conclusion after combining the results of his previous observations. After all, although the red dragon's skeleton looked complete, it was actually damaged and broken in many places. It was only because the skeleton had been buried for 10,000 years that it was covered with sand and gravel. There were no visible problems. If one were to observe carefully like Ji Tianqing, one would discover that the damaged bones were at the vital parts. Of course, it was not important what this red dragon had experienced when it was alive or how severe its injuries were. Swoosh! Ji Tianqing waved his hand and shot out a dazzling golden light, enveloping the entire dragon's skeleton. As he raised his palm gently, the entire dragon's skeleton was pulled out of the ground, bringing with it countless gravel and sand as it floated into the air. Immediately after, there was a flash of light and the dragon's skeleton disappeared. It was kept in Ji Tianqing's spatial ring. Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King were stunned. They looked at Ji Tianqing in confusion. "Brother Long Yu, young Master Long Yu." Both of them could see that Ji Tianqing wanted to take the whole dragon bone for himself. However, they did not dare to believe that such a noble and powerful expert like Ji Tianqing would do something so ungentlemanly. The two of them were still present. Everyone had joined hands to kill the enemy and discovered this dragon bone together. How could you take it all for yourself? Fortunately, Ji Tianqing was strong, so the two of them only showed their displeasure. If it were other god kings, the two of them would immediately fall out with each other. Ji Tianqing glanced at the two of them and explained expressionlessly, "I have great use for this dragon skeleton, so I took it." This explanation was no different from not explaining at all. Nonsense, who would want this set of dragon bones to be useless? Is this the reason why you want to monopolize the dragon bones? No, absolutely not. The Fox Moon Divine King's face darkened on the spot. There was a cold glint in his eyes. He frowned at Ji Tianqing and said in a low voice, "Young Master Long, isn't this inappropriate? We have agreed to form an alliance and join hands to deal with the Celestial Wolf King. Moreover, I was the one who discovered this abyss first." Seeing the Fox Moon Divine King raise his voice and question Ji Tianqing with an angry expression, Lu Ming fell silent. Even though he was a little unhappy and wanted to get a share of the loot, since the Fox Moon Divine King had spoken, there was no need for him to follow suit. Moreover, the Fox Moon Divine King and Ji Tianqing did not have much of a relationship, but he was different. Most importantly, Ji Tianqing's strength and means were obvious to all. Lu Ming felt that it was safer to keep quiet. True enough, Ji Tianqing did not feel guilty at all. He looked at the Fox Moon Divine King indifferently and asked, "Why, do you have an opinion?" Although there was no anger, there was an invisible divine power that shrouded the Fox Moon Divine King. The Fox Moon Divine King's body stiffened. His nerves tensed and his heart was in his throat. However, he had already raised his voice and there was no reason to give up halfway. He braced himself and said, "Young Master Long, no matter where in the Dragon Realm, this matter is not justifiable. You ignored us and took the Crimson Dragon Bones for yourself. This is too much." Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a cold smile. "I want the Dragon Bones. You only have two choices now. Leave or snatch it." "You..." The Fox Moon Divine King's expression froze. He shouted in anger, "You are being shameless and bullying others." Ji Tianqing could not be bothered with him. He turned and flew toward the abyss, wanting to leave this place. The Fox Moon Divine King chased after him instinctively, wanting to stop Ji Tianqing and demand an explanation. Seeing this, Lu Ming, who had been silent all this while, did not dare to sit by and do nothing. He quickly pulled the Fox Moon Divine King. "Fox Moon Divine King, you better calm down. Don't be rash." His expression was solemn as he persuaded in a serious tone. The Fox Moon Divine King was unconvinced and questioned, "Territorial Lord Lu, you be the judge. Is what he did in accordance with the rules? Also, why aren't you saying anything? Are you just going to watch him take the dragon bones for himself and not even dare to say a word of justice?" Lu Ming frowned and said with a bitter smile, "Fox Moon Divine King, don't forget that the Celestial Wolf King was discovered by him, and the Golden Tiger King was also killed by him. If not for him, we would still be fighting the Celestial Wolf King and the Golden Tiger King. In any case, I advise you to swallow this anger and not provoke him anymore. Think about what happened to the Celestial Wolf King and the Golden Tiger King." Hearing this, the Fox Moon Divine King fell silent. His expression became even uglier. That was right. He had already witnessed Ji Tianqing's terrifying strength and means with his own eyes. Moreover, he could also tell that Ji Tianqing looked calm and indifferent, but in fact he was calm and decisive. If he continued to pester, he would definitely infuriate Ji Tianqing. Lu Ming had friendly relations with Ji Tianqing, but he did not know Ji Tianqing. At that time, Ji Tianqing would kill him in a rage and he would have no one to reason with. Thinking of this, the Fox Moon Divine King could only suppress his anger and choose to swallow his anger. But he was still somewhat indignant in his heart and muttered to Lu Ming angrily, "Territorial Lord Lu, although you have a close relationship with this Long Tian, I still want to give you a word of advice. Although this person is strong, he is unreasonable and domineering. You must not let him stay in the Green Lotus region. That is nurturing a tiger and inviting calamity. Be careful that he becomes the second Celestial Wolf King." This sentence was a blatant attempt to drive a wedge between them. Lu Ming glanced at the Fox Moon Divine King and said with a playful smile, Fox Moon Divine King, although I understand your feelings, this sentence of yours is really laughable. Forget it if you haven't heard of Long Tion's reputation and deeds. Go back and ask your territorial lord. Given Long Tion's status and background, even if you give him the positions of the two territorial lords of Tianran and Green Lotus region, he wouldn't care, let alone covet the Green Lotus region. The Fox Moon Divine King's expression stiffened. He was so embarrassed that he could not show his face. Chapter 3598. Although Fox Moon Divine King was not clear about Ji Tianqing's background, but from Lu Ming's tone, he could guess that Ji Tianqing's background was definitely not simple. He could even disregard the two territorial lords. To Fox Moon Divine King, such a powerful person with such a background was already unattainable. He could not afford to offend him. Since that was the case, he could only suffer in silence and keep his mouth shut. Let's go. Lu Ming patted him on the shoulder, revealing a comforting look, and led the way to the top of the abyss. Fox Moon Divine King hesitated for a moment before hurrying to catch up, saying in a low voice, "Thank you." That was right. He indeed had to thank Lu Ming for his advice and reminder. If not, he would definitely fall out with Ji Tianqing, and the one who would suffer would definitely be him. A moment later, Ji Tianqing left the abyss, with Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King following closely behind. The commotion caused by the battle earlier had alarmed many people underground. Those experts and adventure teams were searching for treasures in the caves, canyons, and crevices underground. At this moment, countless people were rushing towards the Dragon Corpse abyss, wanting to find out what was going on. Ji Tianqing did not want to waste any time, so he left with Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King, flying towards the surface. Along the way, Fox Moon Divine King remained silent and did not raise any objections. He pretended that nothing had happened in the Dragon Corpse abyss. Before long, Ji Tianqing and the other two returned to the cave. Peng Fei was still working hard to excavate divine stones and mineral veins. He was so busy that he was sweating profusely, but he was having a great time. When he saw Ji Tianqing and the other two, he stopped excavating and hurriedly asked, "Senior Long Tian Martial Uncle, why are you back? Have you found the Celestial Wolf King?" Lu Ming nodded and said, "We found him. After the truth was revealed, Brother Long killed him. Everything is over, we should leave." "Ah, so fast?" Peng Fei was a little dumbfounded, finding it unbelievable. After a moment of daze, he continued to ask, "Since the Celestial Wolf King's matter is settled, what about the treasures in the mystic realm? Divine Dragon's inheritance and divine weapon, have you found them?" Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King did not answer. They only looked at Ji Tianqing at the same time. What kind of person was Peng Fei? Although Lu Ming and Fox Moon Divine King did not answer, Peng Fei could guess the answer based on their expressions and eyes. He was stunned. "Oh my God. It can't be, right? Senior Long Tian has already found Shenlong's treasure?" Lu Ming did not utter a word, trying his best to remain calm. While Fox Moon God King remained silent, her heart was bleeding. Her expression and eyes were naturally ugly. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Yet Peng Fei didn't notice and asked Ji Tianqing with a heart full of excitement, "Senior, what treasure did you find? Dragon balls? Legacy of the Divine Dragon? Or a related divine artifact or cultivation technique?" Ji Tianqing did not answer him and said with a calm expression, "Peng Fei, we were able to find the real culprit so quickly, and find out the truth thanks to you. Anyway, I want to thank you. I owe you a favor. If you have any problems in the future that you can't solve, I can help you once." After saying that, he took out a communication jade slip and handed it to Peng Fei. Peng Fei's eyes widened in disbelief, and he took the communication jade slip with both hands stiffly, exclaiming in a low voice, Is this true? You can help with anything?" Ji Tianqing only smiled and did not say anything. He waved to everyone and said, "There are still large amounts of divine stones and mineral veins hidden underground. If you don't want to make a wasted trip, then excavate more. Goodbye." As his voice fell, he turned and left without any hesitation. Fox Moon Divine King heaved a sigh of relief, thinking that this guy had finally left. After all, Ji Tianqing was like a huge mountain, pressing down on him until he could not breathe. Lu Ming was stunned for a moment, and a look of disappointment flashed across his eyes. He knew that once Long Tian left, he did not know when they would meet again. It was a pity that he could not build a good relationship with Long Tian during this period of time, and form a deep friendship. Otherwise, they could still keep in touch and help each other in the future. At the thought of this, Lu Ming was actually somewhat envious of Long Fei. That kid was muddle-headed and obtained Long Tian's favor, even leaving behind a communication jade slip. What an honor this was! Among the three, Peng Fei's reaction was the greatest. He did not even want the divine stones and mineral veins anymore, hurriedly rushing out of the cave and catching up to Ji Tianqing. "Senior Longtian, wait for me." After chasing for 800 miles, Peng Fei finally caught up. Ji Tianqing stopped in his tracks and turned back to look at him, asking with a frown, "Is there anything else?" Peng Fei held the communication jade slip with both hands and handed it to him, saying in a sincere tone, "Senior Longtian, I'll return the communication jade slip to you. You don't need to owe me a favor anymore. How about this? I'll follow you. No matter where you go, just bring me along. Don't worry, I won't cause you any trouble. In fact, I'll serve you wholeheartedly, even be your guard and servant." Ji Tianqing looked at the communication jade slip, then looked at his serious expression, and was suddenly somewhat speechless. This kid is really shrewd. He silently sighed with emotion in his heart. Seeing Ji Tianqing remain silent, Peng Fei was somewhat anxious, hurriedly stuffing the communication jade slip into his hands, and continued to plead, "Senior Longtian, don't look at how my strength is meager, but I'm not a fool. Many times I can also play a very big role. This incident previously is an example." Ji Tianqing furrowed his brows and asked in a solemn voice, "You're serious?" "Of course. More real than real gold and silver." Peng Fei hurriedly patted his chest and expressed. He was just short of swearing to the heavens. Ji Tianqing asked again, "If you leave with me, you might not return for many years. Then what about your master?" Peng Fei said without thinking, "Master is a divine king powerhouse at any rate. He still has other junior brothers and sisters serving him. He doesn't lack me. Furthermore, Master also frequently teaches me that reading 10,000 books is not as good as traveling 10,000 miles. Even if I don't return for 700 to 800 years, every 3,000 to 5,000 years, I can still come back to visit Master. Either way, Master has a lifespan of 100,000 years. There are still many opportunities for me to fulfill my filial piety." Seeing Peng Fei chatter on endlessly as if he had 10,000 reasons and excuses, Ji Tianqing chose to be silent. After considering for a long time, he still chose to take back the communication jade slip and agree to Peng Fei's request. "All right, since you're so sincere, then follow. You don't need to be my guard or servant. You can leave whenever you want. I absolutely won't keep you." Ji Tianqing put away the communication jade slip, turned around, and flew towards the ground. Peng Fei immediately revealed an excited smile and said, full of emotion, "For Senior to agree, it's already my honor. How can I possibly leave? It's not like water has entered my head." Although his strength was not considered powerful, his foresight was unique and saw further than ordinary people. He was very clear that being able to follow by Ji Tianqing's side, even if he was a guard or servant, he could also have a limitless bright future. At least, his chances of breaking through to Divine King would increase explosively by several times. Being able to follow such a genius powerhouse, only a fool would leave. Chapter 3599. Half an hour later, Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei left the underground and returned to the Mirage Sea forest. The two of them stopped above the vast forest and waited for a while before Lu Ming and the Fox Moon Divine King appeared. The Fox Moon Divine King did not go near Ji Tianqing. He bade farewell to Lu Ming and left. Lu Ming flew in front of Ji Tianqing and cupped his hands, saying, "Brother Long, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Aren't you going to stay at my domain master's mansion for a few days?" Ji Tianqing waved his hands and said, Thank you for your hospitality, Brother Lu. However, I have other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave now. As for Peng Fei, I'll have to trouble Brother Lu to inform his master that I'm taking him away. He wants to go out with me and explore the outside world. He can come back whenever he wants. Lu Ming frowned and looked at Peng Fei sternly, giving him a warning look. He did not dare to reprimand Peng Fei face to face. Instead, he reprimanded him using his divine senses. Brat, what are you up to? You didn't report this to your master or me. How can you make such a decision on your own? Peng Fei pretended not to hear Lu Ming's voice transmission. He bowed and said with a smile, "Thank you for your support and encouragement, Martial Uncle. I'll follow Senior Long Tian and do my best to serve him. I'll learn humbly and seriously." Lu Ming was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. He wished he could give him 2 tight slaps. Since Ji Tianqing was present, Lu Ming could only suppress his anger. He glared at Peng Fei and warned him with a voice transmission, "Brat, don't think that I don't know what you're up to. Let me tell you. Long Tian's identity and background are beyond your imagination. Given your strength, you're not qualified to follow him and explore the world. You might become cannon fodder one day. Long Tian is present. I won't say much to you. However, you have to be smart. Find a chance to leave in a few days and come back obediently." Peng Fei maintained his smile and nodded repeatedly. "I'll remember Martial Uncle's teachings. Rest assured." Just like that, the warning before he left ended. Ji Tianqing cupped his hands toward Lu Ming and left with Peng Fei. Peng Fei very consciously revealed his true form, becoming a golden-winged Peng. Carrying Ji Tianqing, he flew into the sky, heading straight towards the northeast. Lu Ming stood rooted to the ground, seeing Peng Fei fawning on Ji Tianqing without any bottom line. The green veins on his forehead could not help but twitch. "Detestable brat. How am I supposed to explain this to your master?" After a long time, he let out a helpless sigh, turned around and left. The golden-winged great Peng flew above the vast sea of clouds, its speed as fast as lightning. Ji Tianqing stood on the back of the golden rock with his hands clasped behind his back. His posture was proud and his whole body was filled with a sacred and majestic aura. It had to be said that riding a golden-winged rock was much more solemn and dignified than riding a divine warship. "Senior, where are we going now?" Peng Fei really wanted to rush with all his might, but he had to first figure out the direction and goal. "Xuanji Wonderland," Ji Tianqing replied with an indifferent expression. "Enigmatic paradise? Paradise." Peng Fei was stunned for a moment before he came to his senses. He was so shocked that his body trembled. "Senior, are you sure you're not joking with me?" Peng Fei's voice was trembling and his tone was strange. Fortunately, it was Ji Tianqing who said those words. If it were someone else, he would have flown into a rage. Nonsense. Enigmatic paradise. Was it a place where anyone could go? That was the cave abode of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, the supreme sacred ground of the Star Source continent. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was the master and ruler of the Star Source continent, the pinnacle of the godly king. He wanted to go to enigmatic paradise as he wished. Was he tired of living? Ji Tianqing's expression was still calm as he asked calmly, "Why? Are you scared? If you don't dare to go, then you'd better return to Mount Wuhua as soon as possible." Peng Fei hesitated for a moment, unwilling to admit the respect and fear in his heart. "Senior, I've said that no matter where you go, I'll follow. But you don't have to use this to test me. You can't joke about this. Enigmatic paradise is the cave abode of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor." Ji Tianqing's lips curled into a smile as he nodded. "That's right. I'll go there because enigmatic paradise is the cave abode of the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor." "Are you serious?" Peng Fei could tell that Ji Tianqing was not joking or deliberately testing him. He really wanted to go to enigmatic paradise. "Senior, may I ask if you're going to enigmatic paradise to meet the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor?" Ji Tianqing nodded again and explained, "Yes, I have something to ask him face to face." Before this, he had asked Lu Ming about the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's recent situation. At the same time, he also indirectly asked if there was a human youth by the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's side. Unfortunately, Lu Ming's status was not high enough, and he was very far away from enigmatic paradise. He did not know about this at all. Ji Tianqing had no choice but to go to enigmatic paradise personally, and ask the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor face to face. Peng Fei hesitated for a moment and asked, "Senior, do you know the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor?" Ji Tianqing thought for a while and memories of the past appeared in his mind. He nodded and said, "I guess I know him. Back then, he did have the chance to meet the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor and they even exchanged a few words." The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor even praised him face to face and gave him a few words of encouragement. However, at that time he was only a young genius who was famous everywhere. The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor was already a peak god king and the overlord of the Star Source continent. He was not sure if the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor still remembered him. Peng Fei's expression suddenly became complicated. He muttered, "What do you mean by you know him? Senior, if you're not completely confident, let's forget about it." "Why do you say so?" Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows. Peng Fei hurriedly explained, "The Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's status is too high and he hasn't shown his face for close to 1,000 years. He seems to have been cultivating in seclusion, trying to surpass the God King realm and reach a higher realm. Even if you know him, you might not be able to see him when you reach the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Moreover, you don't have any friendship with the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Even if we reach the Xuanji Grotto heaven, we can't even enter the door." At this point, he was afraid that Ji Tianqing would be angry and hurriedly explained, "Senior, don't be angry. I don't mean to look down on you. I also know that you're a powerhouse with a noble status and a very strong background. However, that Golden Origin Dragon Emperor is not ordinary after all." Without waiting for Peng Fei to finish, Ji Tianqing interrupted him and said indifferently, "No need to say so much. I'm definitely going to the Xuanji Grotto heaven. Not just the Xuanji Grotto heaven, there's also the overlords of the other continents. I might have to visit them one by one. If you're scared, go back as soon as possible so that you won't be implicated by me." Hearing him say so, Peng Fei instantly fell silent. He pursed his lips tightly and thought for a moment before making up his mind. "Forget it. I said that I'll follow you. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, I can't go back on my words. Since you have such courage and boldness, how can I shrink back in fear? I'll go with you and take it as increasing my experience and knowledge." Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 3600. Regardless of whether Peng Fei braced himself or seriously considered it, it was fine. Either way, he was determined to follow Ji Tianqing to the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor's Xuanji Grotto heaven. Since this matter was decided, Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. Peng Fei hurried on with all his might. He took out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes pagoda and placed it on Peng Fei's back. Then he entered the Divine Pagoda's distorted spacetime and entered closed-door cultivation. Of course, before entering closed-door cultivation, he handed the Crimson Dragon's corpse to the White Dragon and Black Dragon. That complete corpse plus half a dragon pearl was a supreme treasure to the White Dragon and Black Dragon. Ji Tianqing examined it seriously and determined that the Crimson Dragon's corpse was a high-rank god king when it was alive. As long as the White Dragon and Black Dragon refined the Dragon Corpse and Dragon Pearl, they would definitely break through to the God King realm in time. After all, the two of them had long become high-rank godlords and were not far from the God King realm. After dealing with the Dragon Corpse, Ji Tianqing entered closed-door cultivation in peace and worked hard to increase his strength. He first refined the Heavenly Wolf King and Golden Tiger King's Divine Spark fragments. While his strength increased, the number of divine Dao laws he grasped also increased by more than a dozen. Now the number of divine Dao laws he grasped reached as many as 520. After refining the 2 divine sparks, he continued to comprehend the heaven-punishing divine art and cultivate all kinds of divine abilities. Although he had the chance to meet the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor back then, but he also did not have the confidence to be able to meet the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor with his own eyes. No matter what, increasing his strength first was the most important. Xuanji Grotto Heaven was located in the central region of the star source continent, within the divine star field. The Green Lotus region was in the southwest of the star source continent, separated from the divine star field by more than 20 regions. Even if Peng Fei flew at full speed, it would also take half a year. Of course, he also had times when he was tired and had no choice but to stop and rest. Along the way, he ran into trouble a few times and was delayed for some time. The identity of a golden-winged great roc was seriously too eye-catching, attracting the covetous eyes of many people with ulterior motives. For example, those God King powerhouses whose strength was not ordinary but bloodline grade was very ordinary. They wanted to capture Peng Fei, refine him, devour and seize his golden roc bloodline. There were also some powerful demonic beasts and ferocious beasts that lived in the wilderness. To them, most of the demonic beasts were ordinary food. Only demonic nobles like the golden roc, Luwu, and Chongqi were delicious food. If he could capture and devour it, it would definitely bring him great benefits. These people who dared to make a move against Peng Fei were basically all powerhouses that he could not afford to provoke. Even if there were some demonic beasts whose strength was not far off from his, they moved in groups. Because of this, Peng Fei was extremely vexed. He also experienced great danger and crisis. Originally, he wanted to call out to Ji Tianqing and ask him to help. Based on Ji Tianqing's formidable strength, those demon race god kings and powerful demonic beasts were simply unable to withstand a single blow. But Peng Fei knew that Ji Tianqing was currently cultivating in close seclusion, and should not be disturbed. Moreover, he also wanted to prove to Ji Tianqing that he was not a weak burden. He could also use his strength, talent and wisdom to solve all kinds of problems. Reality proved that Peng Fei really did it. Regardless of whether he was facing a monster race god king or a group of monster beasts, he was able to remain calm and collected. He was able to quickly think of a way to get out of danger. Even though some methods were very complicated and took a very long time, but he finally used his wisdom and various methods to turn danger into safety, escaping danger. Even though he suffered considerable injuries after going through 4 or 5 dangerous situations, but his heart was proud and satisfied. Just like this, the original half a year to reach the Divine Star domain became a full 7 months in the end. In these 7 months, Peng Fei crossed half of the star source continent and experienced all kinds of dangers and crises. He grew a lot imperceptibly, and Ji Tianqing cultivated in close seclusion, for a total of 29 years in the distorted space-time. In these 29 years, his comprehension and control of the heaven-punishing divine art reached an even more profound level. At the same time, his strength also increased steadily. When the conditions were right, he broke through to the 5th-level Divine King realm and consolidated his foundation of the Divine Tao. The Divine Star domain was very vast. Xuanji Grotto Heaven was a grotto heaven that had existed since ancient times. It was naturally not on land or in the forest, but hidden in an alternate space. The entrance was above the firmament. On this evening, the sun was setting in the west. A golden-winged great peng streaked across the sky above the sea of clouds like lightning, flying towards Sky Crane Mountain. Swoosh! Even if ordinary people knew about the existence of Xuanji Grotto Heaven, they would not know where the entrance was. Fortunately, Ji Tianqing knew that the entrance to Xuanji Grotto Heaven was in the depths of Sky Crane Mountain. The closer they got to Sky Crane Mountain, the more nervous Peng Fei became. At the same time, there was a trace of longing and anticipation. The previous 7 months of adventures had made him forget about the fear of going to Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Now that they were about to reach their destination, the fear and uneasiness in the bottom of his heart exploded again. Senior, what do you think Xuanji Grotto Heaven is like? Would there be a lot of guards and a lot of God King experts standing guard? Those guards and God Kings are staying in Xuanji Grotto Heaven to serve the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. They must be very arrogant, right? If we go there like this, won't we be despised and chased away? They were about to reach Xuanji Grotto Heaven. It would be a lie to say that they were not nervous. Peng Fei's tone was filled with hesitation and worry. His previous confidence had disappeared without a trace. Ji Tianqing said calmly, Xuanji Grotto Heaven is the abode of the overlord of the continent. Of course, there will be countless guards and experts guarding it. As for whether they are arrogant or not, who knows without seeing it with their own eyes? But no matter what, if we go there with sincerity, there should still be a chance. Peng Fei was silent for a while. Suddenly, he thought of something and quickly asked, Senior, I heard from Martial Uncle that your identity and background are not simple. Since you have met the Golden Source Dragon Emperor, it means that your background is qualified to meet the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. In this case, if you take the initiative to report your identity and background, you should be able to meet the Golden Source Dragon Emperor, right? Ji Tianqing was silent. His eyes were a little complicated. He thought to himself, if the old dragon comes here personally, of course he can bring me into Xuanji Grotto Heaven and meet the Golden Source Dragon Emperor. However, 1,000 years have passed. I wonder if the relationship between the old dragon and the Golden Source Dragon Emperor is still the same as before. How are they doing recently? Peng Fei saw Ji Tianqing's silence and instantly guessed the answer. His eyes dimmed. He did not say anything else and continued to fly in silence. Finally, when night fell, Peng Fei saw a mountain peak appear in the vast sea of clouds in front of him. The mountain peak with a radius of 50 kilometers was faintly discernible in the sea of clouds. It was illusory. Right above the mountain peak there was a huge white light vortex. It was like a bright moon hanging in the sky. Seeing this, Peng Fei immediately perked up and slowed down his flying speed. This was because the mountain peak faintly discernible in the sea of clouds was Sky Crane Mountain. And that white light vortex was the entrance to Xuanji Grotto Heaven. Chapter 3601. Phew. I'm finally here. Peng Fei flapped his wings and slowly landed on the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. He looked up at the moon in the sky and murmured with bright eyes. Although he was nervous, uneasy, and worried, he also had some anticipation and excitement. He had imagined that Senior Long Tian's background was very impressive, and that he would be welcomed into the Xuanji Grotto Heaven after announcing his identity. At that time, he would be able to follow Senior Long Tian into the Xuanji Grotto Heaven for a tour. Even if he did not gain anything, just being able to enter the Xuanji Grotto Heaven once was enough for him to be excited and proud for a few hundred years. Swoosh! With a flash of golden light, Peng Fei reverted to his original form and turned back into a young demon. Ji Tianqing landed on the peak of the mountain and stood in the sea of clouds. He looked up at the moon-like entrance of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven and observed silently. He had met the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor before. However, this was his first time in the Xuanji Grotto Heaven. In the past, he had only heard other godly kings talk about how glorious and majestic the Xuanji Grotto Heaven was. Now that he was seeing it with his own eyes, even if it was just the entrance of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, he felt the same way. The Xuanji Grotto Heaven was like a divine eye that hung in the sky and looked down on the entire Star Source continent. It represented absolute power and authority, making billions of demons in the world submit and look up to it. Peng Fei looked up at the entrance of the Xuanji Grotto Heaven, and was also stunned by the majestic aura. His heart was filled with endless respect. Just as the two of them were feeling emotional, a few beams of divine light flew over from the sea of clouds and landed on the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. Swoosh! Swoosh! The newcomers were 4 godly kings in golden armor and holding halberds. The 4 of them were of different races, but they all looked like middle-aged men. They looked cold and gave off a majestic and murderous aura. Ji Tianqing secretly used his divine perception to check, and found that the 4 of them were all upper godly kings. Moreover, they were all 8th-level godly kings. Experts of this level would be overlords anywhere in the Star Source continent. They were far stronger than 99% of the region lords. Who are you? Tell us your names. For divine kings wielding halberds surrounded Ji Tianqing and Peng Fei as they coldly and sternly shouted. Without a doubt, they were the guards of the Enigma Grotto, guarding the entrance of the grotto. Peng Fei was expressionless on the surface, but in reality, he was extremely shocked in his heart. Oh my God! This was too inconceivable. For high god kings were actually only guards at the entrance of the Profound Secrets Grotto? You can imagine how many high god kings there are in the Profound Secrets Grotto. In Peng Fei's view, high divine kings were very rarely seen, powerhouses with revered statuses. If placed in any continent of the dragon realm, he would be able to control the most prosperous area and become the ruler of a region. But in the Xuanji Grotto, this was too terrifying. The resources of the Xuanji Wonderland and the forces under the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor were indeed terrifying. Ji Tianqing was also somewhat surprised, but didn't have as big of a reaction as Peng Fei. His gaze swept across the 4 high-level god kings before he cupped his hands and said calmly, "I am Long Tian and I am here to meet the Golden Origin Dragon Emperor." The 4 high-level god kings all frowned, a hint of disdain and coldness flashing across their eyes. This name is very unfamiliar. Never heard of it at all. An unknown brat also vainly wishes to have an audience with His Majesty the Dragon Emperor. Brat, did you contact the chief steward in advance? Without the chief steward's approval, nobody can think about entering the profound secrets grotto. His Majesty the Dragon Emperor isn't someone that any random Tom, Dick, or Harry can have an audience with. You can scram now. The 4 high-level god kings' attitudes were very disdainful and domineering, immediately wanting to chase Ji Tianqing away. Ji Tianqing immediately frowned, his expression indifferent, his eyes cold. Peng Fei was also filled with rage, feeling very humiliated. Indeed, I guessed correctly. I had long expected that the guards guarding the profound secrets grotto would definitely be very arrogant. Didn't expect that not only were they arrogant, but they were also very arrogant and domineering. Truly detestable. Of course, he could only think these words in his heart and did not dare to say them out loud. Ji Tianqing thought of the purpose of this trip, to investigate the whereabouts of his son, could only temporarily suppress his anger and said expressionlessly, "Everyone, I am Long Tian, the last disciple of Dragon Emperor Feng Tian. I have an important matter to discuss with Golden Origin Dragon Emperor. Please inform him." Ever since entering the Dragon Realm, Ji Tianqing had always been low-key and had never revealed his identity or background. But this time, in order to meet Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, he had no choice but to reveal his identity and background. As expected, the 4 high-level god kings were stunned for a moment, and the disdain and contempt on their faces disappeared. The 4 of them looked at each other and whispered secretly, "Dragon Emperor Feng Tian? The ruler of the heavenly dragon continent? Seems like it, but that was in the past. What did this brat say? He is Dragon Emperor Feng Tian's last disciple? That's not very likely, right? How can Dragon Emperor Feng Tian's disciple be so shabby and without any ostentation? Whether he is or not, we'd rather believe it than not. Let's report to the General Director first." Yes, before we understand the situation, let's ask the General Director to make a decision. Soon, the 4 high-level god kings finished their discussion. One of them took out a communication jade slip and sent a message to the General Director to report the situation. Another god king looked at Ji Tianqing and said expressionlessly, "Wait here, we have to ask the General Director." General Director? Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and carefully recalled for a while before asking, "Is it God King Dark Death?" He vaguely remembered that God King Dark Death was a 9th-degree realm cultivator back then. He was deeply trusted and valued by Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, and was his right-hand man. Speaking of which, when he followed Dragon Emperor Feng Tian and met Golden Origin Dragon Emperor, God King Dark Death was also present. At that time, God King Dark Death had looked at him a few times and even chatted with him. No matter what, God King Dark Death should remember him. But it was a pity. The 4 high-level god kings frowned at the same time as they revealed a surprised and amused expression. "You actually know God King Dark Death? Kid, tell us honestly, what's your relationship with God King Dark Death?" "Our General Director is God King Heartless." For some reason, Ji Tianqing could hear a trace of vigilance and hatred in the 4 god kings' tone. It seemed like they did not like God King Dark Death. As for the God King Heartless that they mentioned, Ji Tianqing had never heard of him before. Sensing that there was a problem with their attitude towards God King Dark Death, he did not mention him and simply waited silently. Not long later, the white light vortex high in the sky lit up. Swoosh! A golden crow raceman wrapped in 5-colored divine light flew out of the white light vortex and arrived at the peak of Sky Crane Mountain. This thin man with a head full of black hair was covered in dark gold. He had a long and cold face. His dark purple eyes and golden pupils emitted a cold and dangerous aura. This was Mysterious Grotto Heaven's general director, God King Heartless. One look and one could tell that he was not a kind person. You're tuning into the Lee May Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.